Good evening and Happy New Year, everyone. I hope it's still appropriate to say that. I want to welcome you this evening to the Brawley City Council meeting and successor agency to the Brawley Community Redevelopment Agency. This is our regular meeting agenda, scheduled to this evening, Tuesday, January 15th, 2019. If we can get our roll call, please.
Mayor Warden,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Kastner Hudeke.
Here.
Councilmember Hamby,
Present.
Councilmember Couchman,
Here.
Councilmember Nava.
Here. And very good. And if we could, we'll have the invocation by Pastor Mike Shelton of the Western Avenue Baptist Church.
Thank you. Shall we pray? Our Father in heaven, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the beauty in it. We ask, Lord, that you would bless this council, give them strength and courage to make the decisions that need to be made. We ask, Lord, for your wisdom for them so that they would make those decisions for the best interest of the city of Brawley. We thank you for this country in which we live, and thank you for the freedom that we have to enjoy. We ask now that you will bless their deliberations this evening, and we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. We can have the pledge led by Councilmember Couchman.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Couchman, and thank you, Pastor Shelton, for the invocation. First item on our agenda this evening will be the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions? On to item 2. Item 2 is our public appearances and comments. This is not to exceed 4 minutes. In this time period, the public may come up and address the council on any items that are not appearing on the agenda, and that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. The mayor will recognize you when you come to the microphone. Please state your name for the record. You are not allowed to make personal attacks on individuals or make any comments which are slanderous or which may invade an individual's personal privacy. Please direct your questions and comments to the city council. And what I'm going to do before public comment, as we're in that period now, I'm going to go to 2A, which is our 5-year recognition of Reserve Police Officer Matthew Levitt. I believe we have some family members and Chief. Oh, yep. Absolutely, Chief, and then maybe, yep, I'll maybe from here, and Chief, you can go off of me from there. So, what we do have, and Chief, when I defer to you, I'll go ahead and read the recognition.
Yes, sir.
And we'll
I
kind of.
think he's going to go first. You're going to. Yes, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
go ahead.
So, good evening. I'm Robert Sawyer, the police chief for the city of Brawley. Honorable Mayor, city council members. It's very pleased tonight. It's my pleasure to be here before you to honor one of our volunteers here in the city of Brawley. Matt Levitt has been a reserve police officer with the Brawley Police Department for the last 5 years. Being a former reserve myself and having a reserve officer on our council, I'm sure that most of us can recognize the dedication and the sense of commitment it takes to give of yourself, your own free time with little to no pay, to come out and protect the citizens of our fine community here. So I've had the pleasure of knowing Mr. Levitt since day one here. Got to go to lunch with him the first day I was sworn in as your police chief, and ever since that time I've been nothing short of impressed. He has been the epitome of our reserve program. He is a strong worker both at our department and outside here in the community. He's a resident of the city of Brawley and a business owner here in the city of Brawley. He is here tonight with his family, his wife of nearly 15 years this month, Julia Brett. I have to say the first name because I was told that little inside joke would go off well or maybe not go off well. And his 3 sons. So again, it's my great pleasure to introduce him to council. If you haven't already met him, I'm sure most of you have. But to the members of the community which he serves on his own time, of his own accord, we cannot do a number of the things that we do without a reserve and volunteer program, such as Explorers and so forth. That being said, Matt is instrumental in our reserve program. He conducts our backgrounds for our volunteers. He's been to background school. He has some advanced training in that area. And he's just done a tremendous job to help us grow our volunteer program in the Reserve Corps within the city of Brawley and the Brawley Police Department. Not only that, he's dedicated to coming out and putting in time on the streets. He'll be out patrolling our city's streets to keep us safe later tonight, following this meeting, is my understanding. And he's really giving of himself and his time, which is valuable. And you know, we go out there every day as law enforcement officers and we protect the streets. Reserves do it for free. So we really do owe a debt of gratitude to our volunteer program. And again, I'm very pleased to honor him in his 5 years with the city of Brawley tonight. So Mayor, if you don't mind.
Absolutely, Chief, be my pleasure. I'm going to read off this, this token here of the 5 years. And it's in appreciation for 5 years of outstanding commitment and service to the City of Brawley Police Department, recognizing Matt Levitt, Reserve Officer 2, Level 2, in dedicating over 1,500 hours of volunteer service protecting the citizens of our community. You have exemplified the standard of community service and are to being commended for your dedication and personal sacrifice to help make the city of Brawley a safer place. Matt, no greater pleasure, as the chief referenced, to hand this to you, because it seems like yesterday that you were inquiring about this, and to see you standing here today before council and the public is an absolute honor. So I would like to come down and I will hand this to you. Chief, you want this?
He has a background in backgrounds. That's good. Yeah. Get your family up there for a picture.
You don't mind, I'd like to have it, if we can have Reserve Officer Levitt stand here a little bit, and I'd like council, if they can, an opportunity to make some comments.
Mayor, if you would, maybe get his family. Take a
Oh,
picture with you.
absolutely. We need to do that too?
Yeah.
Why don't we do that?
Absolutely.
Why don't we do
Would you
that?
go
Let's
ahead and
Do
do
that
Yeah.
first.
Let's get any family members that dare, come on, kids.
Yeah.
Dare.
This only happens once every 5 years.
Yes, yeah.
And they'll be taller next time.
Yeah, no kidding. Big smiles, big smiles. All right.
That's good.
Council? Any other comments?
Go ahead.
Well, I would just like to commend Mr. Levitt on his dedication to the city of Brawley and your continued service to our city. And I'm not very familiar with the reserve program, but today I found out how much people in our community are giving and to protect our city and our citizens. So thank you very much appreciated.
Officer Levitt, congratulations to you and your family. You're here with your family, and thank you for the work that you do for the city of Brawley. It's a big commitment, and obviously you have a tremendous amount of support, not just at home, but at the department as well. And we certainly appreciate it here from the council's perspective on what you sacrifice, the family sacrifice, time commitment, and everything else. So thank you very much for that commitment that you're making to the citizens of Brawley and for all the work that you're performing. Congratulations to you, and I'm sure that the 5 years has had his ups and downs, experiences that are positive and some negative, I'm sure. But it's a big commitment, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart because I know, it's not easy being away from friends and family for so long with little reward financially. But congratulations and thank you.
I just wanted to say that I see Matt around town at the Stockman's Club and around in our other community, all around the community, his family also. And we do appreciate your efforts, and the city of Brawley is proud of you
and proud of our police department, and we want to say that we really appreciate it. And from a personal level, I appreciate your efforts and your abilities out there and your ability to get the job done, and I want you to stay safe out there and continue what you're doing. Thank you very much.
Matt, thank you for putting your life on the line. I appreciate what you do to keep our neighborhood safe. I've seen you in my neighborhood, and I appreciate that. And I know it's a sacrifice for your family as well, but I know that your boys are proud of you, and I appreciate what you do for the city. So thank you.
Thank you.
Matt, do you have?
Yeah, thank you to my wife especially. She's so supportive. I know she's praying for me when I'm not home, and for my kids. I know they're proud of me, and I just appreciate them being here. I thank you guys for this, and it was unexpected. Thank you, Chief, and Commander Brown, and Sergeant Rodner. Sergeant Rodner, he was my inspiration for starting this, if nobody knows. He, good or bad, he's the reason why I started doing this.
Definitely good.
Good, it's very good.
So real quick, I guess while I have the floor, I'll share a quick story. It's like my second day out, and I'm sitting shotgun. We're cruising the streets, and I was confident we're gonna catch somebody at least top 10. Right? And we're cruising down the street, and the guy that's driving pulls into the 24/7 market up there on 8th Street, and he's like, "I'll be right back." So I didn't get out. I just sat there. He runs inside. I'm thinking he's gonna get a drink, and he comes back out, and he's got a bag full of ice cream. And he turns around, and we pull up to a house. There's a bouncer in the front yard, and he hops out of the car, and he saw, "Whose birthday is it?" And I was without words. And I see that happen repeatedly, from bringing the homeless guys blankets to reaching in their pockets when they see a family that needs diapers and formula, going to the store and bringing it back to the house they just had a call from. There's countless stories, and it's an honor to serve with people of such integrity, that just acts of kindness, just the willingness to give back to their community that they serve. And I'm proud to be part of that organization. And as a citizen of Brawley, I'm proud of my police department. And you only hear the negative, and it's just amazing how much more positive that there really is. And I just thank you all for that.
That's wonderful.
Well said. Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone in the family. And one last thing, I'll just say that you go down alleys, and there's often said for reserve officers that some people wouldn't go down for $1 million. Officers do it for a whole lot less, and reserves do it for free. So that speaks volumes, your actions. So thanks again, and thank you everyone again for honoring this officer here tonight. So thank you.
Right on. Great job.
All right, so under public appearance and comments, do we have any member of the public that would like to come up and come be heard? I see people moving. Go ahead. Mrs. Wilson.
Mayor Wharton, council members, my name is Patty Wilson, and most of you know me from my other position, representing Brawley Union High School, but tonight I'm here representing M&M 4-H Club and our citizenship project group. What the citizenship project does through 4-H is strives to teach young people good citizenship as well as civic engagement. So part of our project this year is to attend different local government organizations. And so tonight it's your turn. And we also have a second motive tonight. About a month or so, well, actually maybe a little bit longer than that ago, we had the pleasure of Councilman Couchman coming and giving a presentation to our group. And so I'm going to introduce Taylor Tucker, who has a little something she'd like to say to council.
Crazy.
Good evening. My name is Taylor Tucker.
Come up to the microphone.
Oh, okay. Good evening. My name is Taylor Tucker, and on behalf of the M&M 4-H Club Citizen Project, we would like to present Mr. Couchman with a thank you for giving his History of Flags presentation.
Get us
Photo op.
Here in the front, we're gonna quick photo op if you guys don't mind. Thank you for
Absolutely.
indulging us.
No.
Hold it higher.
And they signed, it's
Oh, how
it's signed
cute.
on that.
Wanted to put those up on the fridge. He's got a bunch of them.
All right.
Thank you, Eminem 4-H.
Thank you.
Great job. I thought you were here for like a Future Politicians
Yeah,
of
I know,
America
right?
project.
They are the future politicians.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you,
for
Patty.
stopping by.
Actually, while we're here, and I would invite on the 23rd, 4 o'clock, and I'll send emails to y'all. We're having a mock, I don't know if they know this yet. We're gonna have a mock election with our favorite candidate, where they're gonna have to even present their candidate, and they
Awesome.
will vote. We'll have a mock, polling place, and so anyway, we're gonna do that. I'll send out.
Cool.
So if anybody would like to come and just observe what these kids are doing, you're always
Fantastic.
welcome.
Well, thank you very much for
Thank you.
stopping by.
Thank you. Nice
Thank
to see you, Patty.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Patty.
Congratulations to you all. Yeah, she looks just like her mom.
Very good. Any other members of the public like to come up and speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next item. Our next item will be item 3 on the agenda, consent agenda. These items are approved in one motion. Council members or members of the public may request consent items to be considered separately at a different time as determined by the mayor. Do
Make
we
a
have
motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Moving on to item 4. Item 4, public hearing has been canceled and may come at us at a future date. Is there anything else? So we'll move on to regular business.
Thank you.
And as my council members know, we have quite a bit of business to take care of here, so we'll get started and get moving with item 5A. Be discussion and potential action to approve City Council Budget Resolution Number 2019- in the total amount of $105,901.00 and award contract to project number 2018-05 Streets Rehabilitation Phase 11 Roadway Project to Aggregate Products, Inc., including North 8th Street, Old Highway 111, in the amount not to exceed $3,089,746.51 with a 10% contingency set aside. Backup material on pages 43, 47, and our Public Works Director.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Guillermo Sillas, Public Works Director. This item that is presented to you, it is the streets rehabilitation project that includes various funding sources and several streets also. The sources is our LTA program together with SB1 money for certain streets, and also includes the rehabilitation, better said, the full reconstruction of an alley behind or south of Main Street between 1st Street and 2nd Street, and also rehabilitation of 8th Street from A Street to the northern city limits in from relinquishment funds. You were part of the initial discussion on this last segment of A Street with consulting somebody to perform the geotechnical investigation. And so finally we were able to include it in this project together with other streets. So we are requesting your authorization to award this contract to the lowest bidder, which was API. We received 2 bids from API and Hazard Construction, being API the lowest responsive bidder. Any questions that you have?
Very good, Mr. Silas. I'll open it up to council for any questions, discussion.
I have a question. With respect to this project, I did see the scope of work that is included there. I know we had talked about, and it may not have been with this phase, but we talked about Legion Road improvements. Was that considered here, or was it something that was not considered for the Phase 11?
No, it's
project?
not included. For Legion Road, we have it's changing right now, let's say, because originally we were thinking to include our second part of money from SB1 together with impact fees. But during this time that has elapsed since the concept, so we have been applying for other programs, and we have been receiving additional funds, and we are including on Legion Road. The expectation is to start very soon the design of Legion,
Okay.
and so it will be during the this year that it will be designed and constructed.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the update.
Mayor Wharton, I might add a
Sure.
couple of other items of note relative to Legion that are likely of interest to council. So the first leg of Legion was actually programmed for this year, and it goes Highway 86 to Evelyn.
Right.
And the subsequent segments, they're cut into a second third and a third, and we will have them as a subject for a council meeting in February with reference to supporting a resolution to seek some grant funding for that. What we're trying to do is look not only at development impact fees, which we know are going to be utilized in connection with the first segment of Wildcat that's coming this year, but find some other ways to address the remainder of Legion to the westerly city limits.
Because it was, when we first talked about it, it was supposed to, the development impact fees were supposed to be used for Legion, then it went to Wildcat.
There's a match for the CMAQ funded portion
Right.
of the project, and then a request into the city currently that we're not sure what that final form will be, but it is also a subject for the council's consideration.
Okay. Well, I don't want to get too far off topic, but I wanted just to ask the question with respect to Legion on this particular bidding project, so that's my question. Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions?
So that's this fiscal year, or, this calendar year?
Right, calendar year. Most likely, we are hoping to do it during the first semester of the year. Complete Legion.
Nice, very good.
Is that going to go out to bid, a separate bid process for Legion?
Yes, it will be. We are not sure yet because how many bids we will do, because our different sources and at different times. But we are hoping to be able to accomplish all the Legion Road.
Thank you.
Now, my final question would just with this topic at hand, assuming success tonight, we move forward. What are the timelines looking like for Phase 11 as far as beginning? What's projected?
I believe it is 100 days, the duration of the project. And so as soon as we move forward with the award, so we will just get the documents, sign the contracts, and schedule the notice to proceed in the beginning of construction.
It's quite a bit of
And it will
work,
take
so-
about
yeah.
100 days
101?
to complete. Probably.
All right.
So just another question, so when do you anticipate that the work will actually start on this project?
Probably within 30 days or so,
If it's approved tonight. then it
if
would-
it's
yeah.
approved tonight.
Okay.
A couple of items of note for council. A budget adjustment is required in order to move this entire award forward. We worked to identify exactly from a budgeting point of view which funds were programmed short. It doesn't mean that the funds weren't there in our fund balance, but rather they weren't programmed. So the alley project will require the addition of $87,712 for that work to be completed. And that is taken from the maintenance fund associated with our franchise agreement for alley impacts by dump trucks. And then the 8th Street, North 8th Street project will require an adjustment of approximately $18,000, and that will be taken from our relinquishment funds that are on deposit with the city. And so when we look at what will remain of our funds on hand for that portion of the dollars available for 8th Street. That settlement value was 2.5 million. And so the remainder will be what's available for future maintenance of North 8th Street.
Very good. Any other questions?
Do we know yet what that total amount, that bid amount for that section of?
If you take a look at the last page, you'll see the relinquishment reference, page 44. The portion that applies to North 8th Street represents $1,118,875.
That's from the relinquishment.
Okay.
Page here. Page 44.
Including the contingency.
And this is the rest of it.
Any other questions? If not, if we're ready to move forward.
Make a motion to approve the item.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. See no further questions or discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions? Motion carries. Very good. We'll go to item 5B. Will be discussion and potential action to authorize a professional engineering services agreement with LC Engineering Consultants, Inc. to provide construction management services for North 8th Street, Old Highway 111 Rehabilitation Project in the amount not to exceed $28,185. Backup material on pages 48 to 62.
Mr. Mayor, if there are no questions from council, I've seen the backup material. I would make a motion to approve the item.
I'll second that.
I have a motion second, so I'll offer an opportunity if there's any questions on this item. Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, no abstention, motion carries. Very good, we'll move to item 5C. This will be discussion and potential action to authorize professional engineering services agreement to Sierra to provide material testing and inspection, Inc. for project number 2018-05 in the amount not to exceed $51,800. Backup material, pages 63 through 77. Mr. Silas, are you?
Yes, this agreement, it is for the geotechnical testing and inspection and investigation that is required to perform the LTA and associated projects rehabilitation. We requested 2 quotes from local companies, and Sierra Material was the lowest, and it is included on the material, the breakdown of the different bid schedules that it will be performed with different funding sources.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the item.
Second.
We have a motion second. Are there any questions from council? No. None. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll move to item 5D.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guillermo. Item 5D is discussion and potential action to adopt resolution number 2019, resolution of the City of Brawley, California, approving the Service Area Plan, SAP, the Municipal Services Review, MSR, for the City of Brawley, BR 1-17, pages, backup material on 78 through 188, which also includes a hard copy of the final Services Area Plan.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members. Gordon Gase, Development Services Director. Yes, the service area plan is something that is required to be updated every 5 years. This time we did this in-house. There wasn't any major changes because we didn't expand our sphere of influence or anything, but we did have to adjust some of the numbers in each section. And staff was very helpful in providing each, it encompasses all the departments. And staff was very helpful in providing information for us to update those numbers. LAFCO held a public hearing on December 13th and found that the sphere of influence and service area plan were consistent with their standards, and we need a resolution now from the city that basically cements this as a adopted document. If you have any questions, here to answer.
Questions?
No questions? I read through the plan.
I do have a couple of questions. What
Sure.
numbers changed?
There was population numbers, housing numbers, just standard things that change over a 5-year period. So then, we have to do the ratios then for park acreage per population, things like that. So, just a lot of technical calculations that we have to do.
Those numbers are based on what's actually occurred in the last 5 years.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think there's some projections in there. I do recommend to the public, if they get the opportunity to look at that, there's a lot of good information, again, about your community in there.
Right, yeah, it's, even just like the general plan, it's a very good resource just for seeing what the vision is for the future of the city, and when the time comes up, when these documents get updated and renewed, it gives them a good background of, the kind of things that they might want to see changed.
When was this SAP formulated? The original version of this that's been updated?
Oh, it's been around for decades. But it has to, like, recently, it only had to be updated if there was major changes or if you were gonna do an annexation. But in the last, I believe it's been more than 10 years now, I think since 2006 or 7, we've had to do it every 5 years.
Regardless of whether you're planning to annex anything?
Correct.
Are we planning to annex anything?
Not in the next 5 years, I don't see that.
We have approximately 3,800
Yeah.
lots already
Yeah.
Right.
mapped in our city limits.
Right.
It might be helpful to note that LAFCO did make a number of comments. This document that was adopted by LAFCO and approved, we did have quite a bit of discussion on a number of the elements, and came to an understanding as to what is represented in the report. The report, like the general plan, makes reference to certain service standards, but what our standard is versus what our resources enable us to deliver, there's a gap. So one of the areas a number of the areas that were identified included the police department and fire department. And so we were asked to provide explanations for how we augment today those service level expectations, and one of the examples that was provided is the operation of a reserve program, and how we augment the resources when financial resources are constrained. So it was a good process for us to identify areas where our aspirations are greater than our resources. The other area of interest that was drawn out in their review was water metering, specifically what our plans were to get everybody metered. And so we were able to describe to them how we're currently managing that and how we expect to meet the ultimate timetables for the state of California to have everybody metered.
Our recently recognized reserve officers probably at our most recent annexation at Pilot right now, so. there you go.
So was the annexation of the, the pilot, that was already in the plan, or did that?
Yeah,
was
that
one
happened
of the
before
changes?
this plan.
It happened before?
We used the previous plan for that, and it was
Okay.
sufficient. We had no problems with the service area plan at the time annexing that area, because it was already
So
included.
that was already there?
Right.
Right, the
Yeah.
right-of-way was the portion that was not, half width of the right-of-way was not included. It wasn't
Okay.
until Caltrans relinquished
Right.
that portion.
Okay. Well, it looks like a lot of work went into that. Very,
This is
very good.
fine.
Yeah, it's an excellent report, I think.
Interesting. Look at
Is this, there's so much to read here, but I read somewhere the idea that our population would double.
We have to look at I don't know if you look at it a best or worst case scenario. Over, because it's related to the general plan.
Over 50
And
years or
also,
whatever.
related to, and the next project that's gonna be coming up here soon is the housing element update, which is very important. We're waiting for the regional housing needs assessment to come out from SCAG. It shows how many units they expect us to have in the next, next horizon within I think it's a 7-year cycle now. But we project beyond that, and they project beyond that too. But it always changes. Let's see, last time their numbers were a little too spirited.
Sure.
I think it was overdone for everywhere, not even just in the Imperial Valley. Because it relates to number of jobs created too, and, you're not gonna just have people move here if they have nothing to do, and they don't have a job to support them. And they're not gonna buy a house, obviously. So, that's the next major thing that's gonna come up, and those numbers, like I say, are all plugged into these plans as our goal at the time set by the state.
Okay.
So, but we do have sufficient land and to meet those if necessary. So we're in a
They're
good
built out,
position,
yeah.
as opposed to some, other places that, if you look at in Orange County or LA County, all of those
Orange
places
County,
have to
yeah.
increase
Mhm.
density to achieve the numbers that they're required to have. Here we still have enough land where we can basically keep our current zoning structure. Doesn't mean we can't change it and allow more density eventually in the future, since, that's kind of like the thing that younger people are going for in a housing market. But,
So when SCAG
you know.
is like, you're talking about a housing crisis and limited inventory,
Right.
it's not necessarily here,
Right.
but it's.
Right.
it's
That's the
there.
problem with the
Uh-huh.
one size fits
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
But
Right.
we're, the land is, the space is not the issue, the service level, staffing level, that's our.
And again, the service, those are state standards we're trying to follow. We're unfortunately not as rich as some of these other communities that can easily achieve those standards. I mean, we're doing well in parkland and things like that, but it's more, the public safety and things like that where it's a little more difficult. However, compared to the other cities in the valley, Yerg mentioned, we're fine. We're doing great for the city of our size, and trying to meet those, strict guidelines that the state puts out for us.
Very good. Any other questions? If not, I'll look for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the plan?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions? Mr. Gast will stay right there as we move on to item 5E. Discussion and potential action to approve Serenita Apartments, formerly referred to as Adams Park Apartment Project, impact deferral adjustment and final map approval, TM 16-03, backup material 189 through 152.
Okay, this is, if you recall, the project for that, what was originally known as Adams Park. There are 5 parcels, 4 being for, 3 for sure being for multifamily units, 1 possibly a community center or a flex between a community center and multifamily, and the 1 being the retention basin. This was approved by council, but we actually had to go through a zone change at the time. I believe you all were here, and you probably remember that.
2017.
2017, correct. And this is the first phase, the first 60 units. And they're proposing to do what we've had done before with some of these projects that are tax credit, to have a deferred impact agreement. Doesn't mean they're not going to pay all their impact fees later. They're going to pay the current tier we're on right now. And the difference between what was our nexus, a high nexus in our impact fee study, will be paid over, the difference will be paid over a period of time. Like I said, we've done this with several other projects. If you have any detailed questions about it, be happy to try and answer. Also, the developers and representatives are here if you have any specific questions for them about the project.
Very good. And if we need that, we'll go ahead and call for that. But I'd like to open it up to council for questions, discussion.
Yeah, I expressed some concerns a year ago when this was brought up about the fact that this project's going to grow the population of the city. It's going to put strain on facilities and city services. I understand they're paying the tier of impact fees that we're at currently. I don't understand quite why we're not abiding by the Nexus study and increasing development impact fees across the board anyway. But be that as it may, one of my other concerns was that Chelsea will, I was informed, would operate this nonprofit, so would not be paying property taxes. And so that's a concern because while the impact fees will be deferred, or at least the higher rate of impact fees will be deferred over 31 to 47 years, the property taxes will never make it back to the city of Brawley. So it's a concern for me that a company like Chelsea, that boasts being worth $2 billion, would essentially ask for a loan from a city our size to cover their impact fees, you know, for decades. So that's a concern that I have, and I still have to this day. It's a large project. I'm concerned about supply of power to it. I know that this first phase, I believe you said there's enough power supply there for my ID to cover the first phase, but being that they were not granted the free money that they were looking for off-site improvements, and was there a sustainable energy component to that?
Yes, that
Solar?
was part of the original AHSC, the Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities program that they were trying for, which allowed some money for the city for some off-site pedestrian and bike improvements and on-site energy. They weren't successful in getting that, but they were successful in getting the tax credits. You know, most of these low-income housing, you know, they don't pay property taxes. Property tax is a low amount, percent. We don't make money off of property taxes on single-family or multifamily. What it does bring in those more people who do spend more on sales taxes, which is, you know, where we do make a lot more of the money.
Mhm.
So, you know, there's that. And, you know, they're not asking really for a loan. And they don't have to ask for this at all and give us that extra money. They could just pay the current ones right now and then be done with it. This is just, you know, something it's an extra to us, actually, that can give us some extra money over a period of time.
It makes their application more favorable if they're
Right.
paying an additional tax.
Correct.
Sure, but it made it more favorable to us to vote yes on it a year ago because there was the carrot of the added off-site improvements, pedestrian improvements, and did I hear net zero back then? Was that a phrase that was
You
used?
probably have to ask. that to them.
If we could, there's some questions and obviously concerns. Do we have any others? And it might make sense if, rather than
Sure.
Mr. Gay's kind of advocating, if there's a representative here that can address some of those issues, that I would certainly welcome that at this point.
Hi,
Hi, Ben.
I'm Randy from Chelsea.
Hi, Randy.
I'm the project manager on this project now. Well, to answer that last question, yes, a part of that AHC cap and trade application was a net zero solar system. 'Cause it's all about getting, to be competitive for that program, it's about reducing greenhouse gases. So, but unfortunately, we were not successful
Right.
on that one. So we had to go the 9% route. And what your funds do too, and you kind of mentioned, is there's the tiebreaker score that we're all gauging on to compete for the tax credits. And by giving the 600 in a form of a loan, it calculates our tiebreaker higher, which allowed us to secure the award.
So part of it was awarded. You were given money by the government then for this project?
I'm referring to your fee deferral loan.
Okay.
Yeah. That in combination with the land donation and the amount of tax credits that we voluntarily reduce, it's a whole, gives you your tiebreaker. So.
That was part of that process last year, but that was unsuccessful?
That was the 4% tax credit process, and that's not competitive. The 9% process for which we were awarded is extremely competitive and oversubscribed.
So moving forward, as you expand the project and you move on to the next phases, is that another application process?
Oh, yes. It's all be dictated by the funding that's available. If there are home funds available, what type of project would it be?
And if the energy supply in the area is insufficient for the full build-out, what is your plan?
We would probably, there'd probably be a very large fee from IID. We have another project and we're working with them, and they didn't have the energy, so there's been a substantial fee on that one. If they could never provide energy, we wouldn't have future projects. I mean, it's just.
You would end with the first phase?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I can remember, if I may, just again, going back a year ago, I remember all part of the location of this, land use, it's consistent in every way with the city's plan. There's also discussion of, and this often comes before council of, if not this, what else, could this be or would it be in the future? But with all that said, can you just outline once again, what are the community benefits? Chelsea has a portfolio, obviously, it's quite extensive in this industry. What are the benefits of bringing a project like this to that location?
This one I think is really special. It's 60 units for families, and 8 of those units we've secured project-based vouchers. And so those units will be set aside for families that have a member that has a developmental disability or for individuals that has a disability. We're working in partnership with the San Diego Regional Center. They help that population throughout the state of California. They've expressed a need down here for that. So we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
And we'll have a community center that can be open to the public.
8 of the units are set aside for developmentally challenged. Are there other ADA accessible units?
Oh, yes. Yeah, they'll be per code in addition to the 8.
Okay. Great.
Okay, do we have any other questions? We're here for anyone.
The only question that I had is that you indicated that this is the first phase is 60 units?
That's correct.
And the second phase, or what can we expect as far as that's concerned? Or is that going to be another application process?
It's another application process.
Okay.
And originally, we were looking at 80 units. It went down to 72. That just didn't become feasible financially, so we had to cut it down to 60.
Okay.
So it's probably between 50 to 80, but it's hard to tell, to understand what the market would lead.
Thank you.
Very good. With that, thank you, sir. Are there any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Yes, I'll move to approve the request. Let's see, what's the verbiage on this? To approve the deferred impact fee agreement and final map?
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
We have one opposition. Do we have any abstentions? No other? Very good, sir.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much.
We'll go to item 5F. 5F will be discussion and potential action to approve AMG and Associates, Ocotillo Springs Apartment Density Bonus Agreement, and adopt resolution number 2019- resolution of the City Council of the City of Brawley, California, authorizing application for the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Program. Backup material on pages 253, 260. Mr. Gase.
Okay, this project is located on I Street and the future connection of South 18th Street. This project will develop full width of 18th Street from I Street to the half width that is located at the Best Western. So that street will help some of the circulation in that area.
It'll go straight to.
Yeah. This project is, the reason they're asking for the density bonus, they're asking for 10 additional units. They're allowed up to 35% if they ask. However, they're only asking for 10. It's really like 8%. Again, these numbers, like Randy mentioned, are, it depends on the cycle and what the state wants for number of units, and they usually do range anywhere from 50 to 80. 75 was the number for this one, and this one is applying for the second part of this is again the same type of grant we were just talking about, the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities grant, which we're working with them to establish all those improvements off-site, and also they have plans for the solar on-site too, as of now. It can also be used for some lighting and landscaping off-site too, and within a mile area, which basically covers the whole east side.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Gase. I'll open it up to council. Any questions, discussion?
I have a few things. The service area plan noted that our local economy is held back due to the fact that we're home to a 25% poverty rate. And I understand that especially in state politics, at the state level, affordable housing is at the top of mind for many people who live in San Diego and LA and Orange County and the Bay Area, where housing is truly unaffordable. But here in Imperial Valley, and especially in Brawley, our housing is some of the lowest cost in California.
Depends how much you make. If you're making minimum wage, it's not affordable. It's still a lot more, believe me, if you go to other states, it's a lot cheaper to rent and a lot cheaper to buy houses than it is in the Imperial Valley, even though we are maybe the cheapest in the country. But look at some of the housing prices in El Paso,
Oh, sure. No,
Tucson.
I'm speaking specifically of California, because we're having to deal with state regulations that are broad.
But we do have a high poverty rate in the Imperial Valley.
Absolutely. Absolutely, we do. And as far as affordability goes, we have the most affordable housing in California. I'm not.
And the lowest wages.
Right, exactly. I'm concerned that an unbalanced approach to housing will benefit well-off investors, i.e. Chelsea and others, but it may end up seriously damaging the city of Brawley, our community, especially our schools. That's
How?
how. I think you can look at studies that show that increased levels of income-restricted housing affects the schools.
No, that's not true. That used to be when they used to do the old projects. But nowadays, when you do these projects that are a lot higher standards
The
and don't have the
standards are
type
much
of
higher.
density that they did back when you used to build
Yeah.
Cabrini Green and things like that, there has been no studies that support
Yeah.
that low income, actually, it's shown that mixed income neighborhoods are the most successful.
Yeah.
nowadays.
Absolutely, I'm sure that's the case. I just think we're putting ourselves in a position, attracting income-restricted or affordable housing that offsets the middle income that we have.
There's still-
Councilmember Hamby, if I could, and we'll continue, so I'm not cutting you off. I just want to make sure, I want to be careful when we're making pretty emphatic statements. You're being heard, but let's just stop. Let's just make sure that, we're getting all the facts, on the table, but.
And I might suggest
and
to
then
staff
we'll round back.
that it would be helpful to hear the concerns of all the council members, and then if we can assist with answering any specific questions. But, this is a deliberative process, and we want to be respectful of the dialogue amongst all council members.
Thank you.
So, with that, but continue, Councilor.
Thank you.
I just
Thank
want
you,
to make
Mayor.
sure that we're.
I'm just wondering, I noticed, I was here for the Planning Commission meeting last Wednesday night where this was brought before the Planning Commission and they approved, that there are, as far as I can see, never do they bring in school administration or superintendents to ask their opinion on how this might affect their operations. And I know that, unfortunately, it's painful to say, that Brawley schools are ranked, scored some of the lowest in the county, and it really shouldn't be that way. Calapat is ranked higher than Brawley. Calexico is about the only one that consistently is below Brawley's levels. So I'm saying that because there's a reason for that, and whatever we have done as a city, leadership, school leadership over the last few decades has gotten us to where we are today. And we have to approach it with compassion. I understand that. But I also know that if we have a poverty rate of 25% of our population, and if we have our median household income is just over half of what Imperial's is, there's a reason for that. And I believe that the more we build in that regard, or to attract income-restricted residents, that's the kind of residents that we will have.
Yeah, but I think that your assumption, though, is that there's an influx of people coming in, and it's not just the same population moving. So I would just caution everybody, I know we all have opinions, but sometimes, our opinions are just that. They're just opinions. Sure. And so I think we all differ in opinion in some regard on this particular topic.
Sure.
But I would just say we can't necessarily decide these things based on assumption too. So.
Well, let me ask this. If we build more affordable housing, low-income housing, the people you say are just shifting from one development to another, then you're leaving projects or apartments open.
Not necessarily. It could be family members that are living with parents, and I know many people that do that. And so they're now moving on. They've started their own family, and so now maybe they're in an income-restricted living development. But as has been pointed out, some of the projects that we've seen here, especially in the recent past, and I would say the recent past is the past decade or so, some of those improvements are fabulous improvements. So it does create stability within the neighborhood. And there's the argument maybe that you're making that can maybe differ from my own, but I just don't share the opinion that you have.
Sure.
I mean,
That's fine. That's understandable. I would just like to see our school administration brought into this process more and get their opinions on it, because they're boots on the ground. They see every day how a certain caliber of student affects the rest of their student population.
Mr. Hamby and council and community, may be helpful to note that just as we have a development impact fee nexus study, the school districts conduct the same type of analysis, and they evaluate population growth and assign a dollar value to facilities needs. So they go through a list of what's deficient, what it would take if there were an increase in population, and they translate it to fees that actually are assessed on development. So, and based on the type of use, just like us, there are distinctions between the rates that might apply to commercial versus industrial versus multifamily versus single-family residential. Those studies we absolutely honor in this process, and maybe we could get, just for council's edification, a presentation on the current rate structure. Lots of times when the school districts take on new projects, they actually need to renew their studies as the basis for supporting their local match. When we issue building permits, well, let me back up. When we entitle a project, a basic condition that's attached to every project is they are required to pay school impact fees. And it's based on whatever the current study is. And prior to our issuance of a building permit, we actually require anyone building and constructing to come in and provide evidence that they have paid the school district the fees that were due. And so the administrative component is kind of captured in that document and the payment process to the school district. We don't serve as the cash register for it, but we're the gatekeeper.
Thank you for that, our city manager. I do want to kind of express a little bit of, not just my opinion, but my experience and just observation over the years. I work pretty closely with several of the school board members. I know many of us have regular conversation and communication. I have never heard one time in any of our conduct of city business of this type of discussion having that type of adverse impact at the school level. And I do, including President Patty Wilson that was in here, have pretty regular conversations. So I'm just saying, if that was something I heard regularly or something from the past, I would certainly maybe echo some of that. The other thing in my own learning as a council member, I understood that this really actually elevates a community. Again, I didn't know that prior to council. I would have maybe gone with some of the conventional assumptions that have been made. That's why I want to be real careful in saying and truly understanding if that is fact-based. One of the things that you said, Councilmember Hamby, was just us being the lowest in terms of value in housing and affordability. It's actually remarkably expensive, I think, in Imperial County. People expect to come here and look for what would be, quote, a cheaper house. Is it cheaper than San Diego and parts of San Diego? Absolutely. In some of the big city areas. But I think by comparison, in many parts of the rural parts of the state of California, we're a little bit high. And I think part of that is that we have a very diverse demographic in Imperial County, having to do with a very rich agricultural industry, that produces a lot. There's big business here. We all know that. So there could be a cavernous divide, in our demographic. But I think a community like Brawley that's always been diverse, these projects, anything like it, I don't think it's a fear of attracting some element, that might be adversely impacting. As a matter of fact, it elevates. I think it puts families in a better family situation. It elevates a child's experience. I think maybe they perhaps right on down to perform better in school, getting to school, having, a living situation that's much better than if you don't have this inventory, what's your alternative? So yeah, I just want to express that. That's my opinion. That's how I look at this decision, and when I looked at the backup material, and I've been tracking this project. So if I'm wrong, then I'm always open. But that's kind of been my opinion on this project. But anyone else?
Well, I've been here all my life, here in Brawley. I've seen these projects. Many of them are well administered. Some of them are not as well administered. I've worked with the Housing Authority, been on advisory committees with them, done some things with them, workforce development here in Imperial County. And the fact of the matter remains is that we have a population that has a need for reduced cost on housing. And I don't know that there's any way that we'll get away from that, not in my lifetime. I do think that we can make that housing more affordable by doing this with a newer dwelling. I think we give people some opportunity there. I'm not saying it's all perfect, but I do think that some people have an opinion about low-income housing that it attracts a bad element. I'm not sure that's the case, and looking at the Witter apartments that we received a lot of negative, at least a negative emotional feedback on. I don't know that they have borne that out. I think they've been a pretty neat project over there. When I drive by, it looks very nicely well kept, and the people seem to be enjoying the housing there. It's close to the schools, and I think it does the job. If we can keep these projects in the same way, I think overall throughout Imperial Valley, it doesn't matter what city that you're in, there's going to be a need for low-income housing, and you're going to have a certain element of lower-income affordable housing. Now, what we need to do is plan for that correctly. Hopefully, it's in the right location. Hopefully, it takes up a vacant lot where you may have other issues that develop due to the vacant lots. Also, many times it gets rid of substandard housing and provides for an additional level of housing for the public. So while I don't necessarily want it widespread, I do think there's a need for certain of these projects. And if the developers are well-versed in the activity, if they do the necessary job to maintain it and keep it looking right, then I don't necessarily have a lot of problems with it. I do think it's necessary to look at where it's zoned appropriately, and I don't think in some cases we have really any say over it. We try to enhance it, or we try to give them an ability to do this, but I think that's what the federal government's doing too. They don't get all their cost on it, and certainly we may lose property tax, but I'm not so sure that property tax is the main thing that we operate the city on. It's usually retail sales, it's usually other fees and the things that we receive from that, because we only receive a small portion of the property tax. And so I think that's important. I also think at the school level, they look at people coming into the school and they're going to educate the children in the best way they can. I do think that in some cases, I kind of like the fact that we mingled everybody together and we didn't have the neighborhood school there for a while. And I think that gave certain students an opportunity to be a more mixed and diverse group and know the people in the city. I think with the neighborhood schools, you do run that risk if you put all low-income housing on one side of town or on one area of town, then you do run the risk of that happening at the schools. And I think we need to look at that and take steps on that. But I also think that we need to encourage housing no matter what it is, be it apartments, maybe mobile homes, maybe larger homes, nicer homes, all of that type of thing. I think we have to encourage all of that from the city side, because I think it all benefits the city ultimately. So, and that's my thought on it.
Thank you, Councilmember. Yep.
Yeah, I would just like to add that as a liaison to the Imperial Valley Housing Authority, we deal with this particular subject, and based on all the information that's gathered, statistical information of our population, and what's available out there for our people that live in our community, there's a need. And if there wasn't a need, then there wouldn't be any need for these companies to submit these applications, and they would not be approved, because that's one of the criteria. They have to show that there is a need. And based on all the information that we have in our plan, the income that's made and the population that we have, there's a need for this type of housing. And then the other thing too is that I think when we invited our superintendent Canales from Brawley High School to come and give a presentation to us on how things were going at the school. And we didn't do a comparison with the other cities, and that's available to all of us, but his report was very optimistic, and it showed improvement in the grades of our students in Brawley Union High School. And I'm not sure we got one from Brawley Elementary, but from the high school we did, and I was very pleased with the report that they provided. So,
One other point, Mr. Mayor. If we're going to do away with certain substandard housing in the city of Brawley, such as the trailer park out on Malin and the trailer park maybe up here we're gonna have to have housing for some of those individuals. And they certainly probably are not able to go out and purchase a home. And so I think we have to have some form of relief for those individuals that may be impacted by that type of situation. It's not necessarily our responsibility, but it does rest with us that they need to have affordable housing. So I think that's one key element that I look at when we're looking at this affordable housing. I think the location is important also.
I think there's been great discussion, great dialogue. Unless there's anything else in terms of questions.
I do have one
technical.
other question,
Sure.
Mr. Mayor. Rosanna, do you know if this also will be operated nonprofit, this development?
I believe the final format is, we do have a representative from AMG and Associates. Karen, if you wouldn't mind coming forward, I think it would be helpful to the discussion.
And he's going to stay hydrated?
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Cameron Johnson. I represent AMG and Associates. Yeah, this is it's all of these properties qualify for the welfare tax exemption, and it's really important for these affordable housing projects. They really can't afford to pay property taxes just the way it's set up. So yeah, it'll be the same thing as the Chelsea project. It's the same type of thing. But just know that these properties, they're deed restricted, and they have regulatory agreements where the rents are driven very low. So there's very, very little value. It's not if I was to take it to a tax assessor and they assess the value on it, it's not as if it throws off cash flow. There's no income, and when they do the whole calculation, it's generally there's very little value on these properties. I mean, they're basically just set up to help low-income individuals have safe sanitary housing and get back on their feet. I mean, that's the whole basis behind the program. And I'd like to answer a couple other questions, things that you had mentioned regarding this type of housing here in Brawley. I can tell you, we have affordable housing projects throughout the western United States, and some of the longest waiting lists we have on projects are right here in Imperial Valley. We own the Malin Park project is ours. I went and met with the property management company after it was built, just a few months after the project was, we had received our certificate of occupancy. There were, I want to say, she said there were close to 1,000 names on the list. I mean, it's years just to get in that project. You may wait 2-3 years just to even get in. There's significant demand. We couldn't build enough units to keep up with the demand. I mean, there's a huge need here in this valley. So yeah, to answer your question, I mean, yes, it's affordable, but the people in this community need the housing, and right now they're in overcrowded households and things like that. So there's huge demand, and we have the market study to back that. And I'd also like to talk a little bit more about this particular development, because it's very unique in nature. And you guys are familiar with the AHSC program, obviously, and I think it's good timing that Chelsea was here. We looked closely at Chelsea's application last year to figure out why they weren't successful, and how we can improve our score to make sure we are, because this is a really exciting opportunity for the city. This is not your traditional housing development. This is a hybrid housing, sustainable transportation infrastructure development. The Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities Program, what it's trying to do is have a mode shift from single passenger vehicles to transit, to using transit, van pull, bicycle, walking. That's the whole goal. It's tight, compact development, infill development that promotes this type of the alternative modes of transportation. So in this case, this project, all of the tenants that live within our project will have transit passes. So they'll have free transit passes. We're partnering with CalVans, which is a van pool organization that will come every morning, pick people up, take them to their job, and then pick them up and bring them back. And so the project will own 20 vans and will help people do that. We are going to be building miles of bike lanes throughout the city. I think right now the budget we have is over $1 million just in new bike lanes, new sidewalks, landscaping, street lighting. So this is really, it's not your typical development. I want you guys to know that. It's a hybrid development. It's net zero energy. We'll have solar. And so what that means is as much energy as we're consuming on site, we're producing on site. So it's very unique in nature. And I can answer any other questions you guys have. Like I said, I'm very, very excited about this program. This is the first time I've made an application on it. Part of the reason why we like Brawley is 50% of these funds are supposed to go to disadvantaged communities, which Brawley is considered. It's a disadvantaged community, so it has a leg up on a lot of the competition, but they're probably only going to fund maybe 5 projects in the entire state, rural projects, and we're talking $10 to $20 million of state money that we're trying to inject into this community. And I feel very, very strongly about it, and I think, and I'm confident that we have the application that's going to be competitive this year to win. So, and again, like I said, I can answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Cameron. Still open. Anyone else?
I'm impressed with your Main Street apartments. I do
Well,
think
thank
you're
you.
doing
Yeah,
a good
it's-
job. Whoever the management group is that's running that, I think it is doing very well.
And that's another thing I want to mention to you about the management. These projects are all professionally managed. We do criminal background checks, landlord referral, everything. I mean, it's not, we don't just take anybody. I mean, we do extensive background, credit, criminal checks, and they're well managed.
Yeah, low income doesn't mean low class, you
No.
know, and so that was one of the arguments I heard from the public. And, they wouldn't necessarily state it, and I did have some people state it to me privately, and I'd get in arguments with them because I'm like, no, that doesn't necessarily mean that is the result of that family. It's just, but anyway, well, thank you
Yeah.
for your comments, I appreciate them.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you.
Council, any others? I'd like to move forward if we can. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the item.
We have a motion,
Second.
a second. Call for the question here. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
We have one opposition, no abstentions. Motion carries. Next item will be 5G. Discussion and potential action to adopt the first reading of ordinance number 2019 ordinance of the City Council of the City of Brawley, California, amending City of Brawley ordinance number 86-04 regarding burglar alarms.
If I would, I read the backup material, it's just an increase from $35 to $50. I know that they spend a lot of time responding to false alarms. You get 2 freebies and then you get fined. So I would make a motion to approve the item.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or any further discussion? Before I call for the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Item 5H.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Discussion and potential action to approve Brawley Chamber of Commerce's request for the sale and consumption of alcohol at the State of the City address at the Brawley Municipal Airport on Friday, February 8th, 2019, from 5:30 to 7:30. Backup material on pages 273, 275.
Mr. Mayor, will you be consuming alcohol while you're doing the
Yes.
city address?
It might go
You're
better,
consuming
but
it,
I believe
As long as you're consuming.
we have the city manager might have some.
So this year, we're proposing to have a venue change, and in order to have that venue change and an event that takes place into the evening, there's been a request to make adult beverages available to attendees. The date for this event is the 8th of February from 5:30 to 7:30. The Brawley Chamber of Commerce will be the lead on this special event, and we'll be supporting those efforts in all the ways that we can to ensure that the State of the City address is a successful one.
My only concern about this, Mr. Mayor, is the fact that I did not get any liquor served at my breakfast meeting when I had to do this presentation. I
That
didn't
you
get-
knew of.
I didn't get mimosas, or they didn't offer me anything when we did that, so. I don't know about the chamber, but it is what it is. Okay.
All right, so, yep, a bit of a change going for an evening format, but we're going to mix it up and hope for a great event. So
I make the motion.
We have a
I'll
motion.
second.
Do we have a second? We have a second. Call for the question. All those in favor, say
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. I was going to actually say abstentions, but no abstentions. Motion carries. We'll move to item 5J.
Aye.
Aye.
Am I on the wrong one? Oh, I'm sorry. 5I.
Aye.
Discussion and staff direction regarding professional consulting assistance for the 2019 State of the City address as requested by myself, Mayor Donnie Wharton. Backup materials on page 276 to 280. And,
Mr. Mayor, I did see the information that you presented. I do have some concerns with respect to cost, and if I could just offer a suggestion, I'm hoping that it helps the rest of council as well. There is, I know that the consulting assistance was coming from Conveyor Group, and it was fairly substantial for a slideshow. It's like $1,200. and up to 7,000 and change for additional services. My suggestion, I know I've made my presentations in the past that have taken me hours and hours to develop when I've had time, and so I realize that there is time and money involved in those items, and I wish I could personally help you. In this case, I just can't, not with my own schedule at the moment. But we have used Spectrum in the past, and they're filming this meeting now, and we've done vignettes. If I could suggest, and this is just a suggestion, to maybe have a vignette of some of the accomplishments within the city, keep it a few minutes, maybe include some comments from the rest of council on the video, and that the rest of the presentation maybe can be developed by yourself or some member of staff, and embed that video just to increase the production quality, and maybe that would be an alternative. I hope you don't mind, but I did speak to Spectrum just to get an idea of what they could offer, and it's something that would be within the standard cost of what we've paid for the vignettes, which is like $500-600. So that might be something more affordable, and it's maybe more inclusive of council, and it can highlight some of the accomplishments that we've seen. That's a suggestion, but I think their quality is. And I did read the licensing agreement with the conveyor group. I thought it was odd, like if we print out the material, because they'll give it to you in a digital format, and if it's used in any other format, it needs to be relicensed, and there's greater expenses there. So anyway, just food for thought. So.
Thank you, Councilmember. No, I'll not only for the sake of this discussion, take that not just heavy consideration, I'm hoping we can give some staff direction out of this. If I could just frame up, and then it'll be wide open. The intention wasn't necessarily to come before council with specific quotes, obviously, hence the range. My approach with the city manager was typically what happens, and maybe members of the public may not know this, for this event, which is a fantastic event, so obviously we're very grateful in partnership with the chamber that this is facilitated, it's put together, it's been very successful in the past. But I look at it as it's an opportunity for us collectively as a council. It's not just really a mayor thing. It really represents the good work we do all year long. God knows we're faced with the challenges and some of the tougher discussions, but this is an opportunity to really highlight many of those topics that have occurred over the last year, to kind of recount that to an audience. And it is, I guess, simulcast over, KXO. So there's a pretty broad audience. I mean, you'd be surprised more people hear it than you would think. So my thought was, in the past, with my past experience, was I did exactly what you said, Councilmember Nava. I put my time into it. What I lack is I lack some of the talent that Councilmember Nava and maybe some of you have on graphic design. I'm just not that visually appealing when it comes to that stuff, or creative. I have kind of a vision of what would be nice, but all I thought is what can we do to really spruce up the visual effect of what is going to be really the standard delivery of the information. So hence the range. So what I would be happy with, I think, for staff direction is just get a sense here publicly and with us. I think some of you have maybe received some input from the public. I understand that. I just think the value of delivering a quality report, if you will, of the status of the city does two things for us. It's not just looking backwards, more important, it's looking forward. I think of what we're looking to accomplish this year. Be a great opportunity to articulate that. And my goal is to articulate that on behalf of the council. This isn't, just my ideas. So, and I've spent quite a bit of time collecting those ideas from each council member. So what I look for here is just if there's an idea such as Councilmember Nava's, that is fine. As long as the end product, maybe it's just something more exciting than what I can create on my own. So that's kind of my case there. So I'll open it up to discussion.
Okay.
I like what Mr. Nava said. About maybe looking at what Spectrum could do to cut the cost of what Conveyor Group has estimated here. I don't know if there could be a hybrid of using Conveyor for the first document.
I think there was PowerPoint
Yes.
work. I think we're talking about potential photography, video, et cetera. And I want to be clear on the video, not some feature film or
Right.
anything like that.
Right.
Literally taking something just to add the multimedia effect.
What is the line that you used when you were acting? Maybe you could use the same line.
There you go.
What is it?
It could be.
There were so many.
No, the one where you just said one word or two words, or what was it? What was it?
I don't remember.
Oh, I think it's at the Stockman's Club, I don't know.
But Councilmember Nava, you mentioned, and
Oh,
just to
yeah.
glom on, I would like to definitely
Lord
say.
and Taylor.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'd like to
You can use
include
it.
council on that if that's possible. So, the message again is kind of coming from us. So I do plan to invest my own time to have a quality address. But I like this idea if there's maybe support around
Yeah,
what
we can
Councilmember
include
Nava.
video. I'll tell you what, this is, I'll find a couple of hours. Why don't you draft something,
Okay.
right? And I'll work on some of the graphical work, the edge to it, and if we can include some video to it, I think it
Okay.
would be really, it would make it pop.
I think we've got a small member of the community that would like to come
I have the perfect one to give the message right now. I just want to add a couple of things that I'd like to throw out for you guys to keep in perspective as well. Katie Luna with the Brawley Chamber of Commerce. This is Sebastian, by the way.
Sebastian, how
He's
are
been
you,
here
buddy?
before, he just doesn't know it. So the venue has changed and the format of the event has changed. And while it's been a great event, every year we've had success with it, it typically costs the chamber around $2,000 to $3,000 to put the event together. Where does that come from? That comes from sponsorship, that comes from the business community. So from their standpoint, from our standpoint, we want to have, I'm out of breath. You're a heavy kid.
Yeah.
We want to have the best possible
Production quality.
production
Sure.
for the bang for their buck, to keep in mind for that, because they do put a lot of money down and say that they want to hear that good message, and so having the video will add more quality to the event. So just something to think about and keep in perspective.
I'll help you make it.
Okay.
I'll make it very good. Let's just work on that. But if we can include that video, that'd be great.
Couple of things. Normally, what I would do is defer to the mayor on this item. It's something that each mayor kind of chooses their own way to do this. I think Sue Giller helped me with my slideshow production. The chamber worked with the Stockmans and everybody else that's involved with this type of production, and it worked out pretty well. I do think there's a cost involved, and I think we need to gather that cost if that's what's necessary. And there's hours involved. And I know the city staff worked with me a little bit on it. I don't know that they have the time right now to do this. And I know that George may have some time available, but
I don't.
I think there are a lot of people that don't have time available.
Wait, don't change anything.
I think there's
In
a
a good
cost
spot.
involved in that. I was a little, 7,000 seems like a lot of money for it, I thought, but maybe half that, or maybe somewhere around a $2,000 to $3,000 range, 2,500, something like that. I thought if we could get by with something like that, that might be okay. Now, there's also sponsorship type money that comes in, and there's all those types of things. So this is more for the production. But
Can
what
I-
I'd like
can
to
I
do is just
suggest-
take a look at that.
Can I suggest maybe, that way we can all be in agreement, let's cut that, I'll do as much work as I can, obviously just taking up my time and making sure it's a very good production quality, but if we can maybe agree to like $1,000, that would maybe, I can live with that. I mean, I know that I wasn't happy with the 7,000, even the 1,200 for the, for a slideshow.
I have to say, I would agree to more than that, because I think it's gonna cost more than that. You'll donate maybe your time, but you've still got a lot of time involved in this, so my personal opinion is it should be higher than that.
What was the
Councilmember
cost? Oh, I'm
Couchman,
sorry.
what I was going to say is I want to make sure that the public is aware, because it is moving to a public facility, there's definitely an impact there, and I've had those
Right.
conversations with staff, so I want to be very clear on that. We're going to do everything we can to minimize. The goal here, I think, for all of us collectively is to have a very good event. There's a lot to celebrate, a lot to talk about, and there's no question there's some challenges that, will be addressed as well. So rest assured that I'll certainly give it my best effort on that. So with that in mind, knowing there'll be some of those impacts, maybe if we work with this lesser amount, but it gives us an amount to work with to do something on the production end, and then also be mindful of there could be a little bit of staff time, because it is an airport. There's some cleanup and some prep.
I think the
Yeah.
staff time, yes, but I do,
Yeah.
and I do think we may be able to accommodate that.
Yeah.
But I do think there's gonna be some costs involved in the production, whether you
Yeah.
receive assistance or not. And so I think that's maybe what we should authorize. And I don't know how much we need to
$1,000
authorize.
bucks.
Well,
I
what
don't
did we
have-
spend for when Sue Guillory, do we have any information on?
I don't
mean, just do we
recall
have
off
an
the top of
idea,
my
like,
head.
how much has been spent before? I know that George did most of the work himself.
I did it all.
But see,
But
but
George-
But George is 7,000.
And I'm not capable of doing that.
I
And
know.
So
So
when
that's
it
why I
comes
was-
to
Look,
for my time.
if we can agree to $1,000, I'll put in the time, and that'll be for Spectrum, if they can produce the video and maybe have something that's inclusive of council. And I'll put in the effort and the time and energy to make sure it really highlights our accomplishments and make sure that it's really a well-produced presentation. How about that? I mean, and that'll save us that'll save us about $5,000, so.
So you're saying $1,000 in addition to what Spectrum will charge for the
No,
video?
no. That'll cover them. I'm doing everything for free, obviously, but I'll make sure that the product quality is gonna be worth thousands. I mean, I'll do it that way. You know what I mean? So
I haven't had any contact with Spectrum
I did
about a
speak to them
scope of
today.
work.
I did speak to them, and they could do, like I said, that they would agree to doing the video, and covering some other, like, photos and stuff like that, so.
So
And that's within your range of
Right, I'd
spending, yeah.
have to come to you for a budget adjustment
Yeah.
because there is no budget for this.
Mhm.
So that can be just a consent item in the future. I just wanted to be sure because I did initiate contact with another provider.
mhm.
Is there any interest on the part of the council for me to go back to that provider and say, can you do a video for $1,000?
Well,
Yeah,
it's
just because
not
our-
just the video, because I would be still doing the slides. If they're charging for 20 slides, they're charging $1,200 or
No,
whatever.
no, no,
it is.
if we only offer to them the same
Yeah.
thing that you're
I
proposing
mean,
for
you could.
Spectrum, just because they have already provided us with a quote.
What's our bid process? What would we normally?
It's
We
not a
don't have
bid
it because there's
process.
not enough
It's
money to
not.
be a bid
Yeah, it's
process.
just professional services.
If it makes it easier I don't want to drag this on forever,
Right.
you know, let's just move forward. I would just say this, if it makes it easier, I would even be able to contribute part of my training budget or whatever, just because that's already been approved. And that way we can, if the rest of council is willing to give something up,
I
sure,
would too.
I would,
Yeah,
you know.
I'm
just be
willing to give that up too, so we can talk about a portion of that being given towards this effort.
I'll give $200 from my budget.
And I don't know how much I have in my budget right now currently that I haven't spent. Usually I have the most. So I will certainly offer a portion of that, a larger portion, whatever it is.
I think we would all be willing
Whatever is
to, I mean, I'd be willing to contribute
Luke,
part of
would you
my
be willing to do
travel
that? Sure. 200
training
bucks, yeah.
budget
Whatever-
also.
That makes
whatever's
it easy,
necessary.
yeah.
I'm willing
Why don't
to
we just
put
say
up-
that, and
I'm
then
willing
let's
to
just
put
move
up
on.
more than that.
So I'm
if
clear on
need.
direction, though. There's $1,000 authorized for video work by your naming who the party is or not?
Spectrum. I did speak to them just because I was a little bit shocked by the cost. They said they're willing to do that in other things such as photography and other things. So for that amount, why don't we just see what they can do with that, and I'll work on the presentation and everything else. I have all the equipment. Look, I have the sound. I have everything. I mean, I can. It just you
Are
might
you
need
okay
to
with
go
that?
and pick it up.
Yeah, no, that's,
yeah.
So 200 from each.
I'm just wondering if 1,000 doesn't cut it, I mean, do you,
It will.
It
We'll
will?
make it. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll make that work.
Very good. I think that's good for the public. Thank
I
you
mean,
very
I
much.
did mine
Yeah.
for free, you know, and if I had to do honestly, if I had to film the video myself, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I've already committed to it, so I want, I want us all, every department, I want every resident to be proud of the work. And like, I'm not gonna put anything out there that's not gonna be good, so, you know, at least that I think.
When
George
is
has done a
that,
good
when is
job
that
with
going
it.
to happen?
This
That's-
event is February
8th,
8th, so
right
they're
around the corner,
literally
yeah.
They got 2 weeks.
2.5 weeks,
2.5 weeks.
and
Yeah.
staff needs to
Good luck.
present that
I
content.
take it back,
to
I'm
them.
not gonna.
Yeah, it's 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
You do understand.
That's,
that.
I'm sure, part of
Hope
the
everybody-
pricing as
yes,
well
I'm
as the
sure it is.
turnaround. So I don't know if Spectrum is aware of when the date of the
Well,
event is.
they can do that in one day, you know, it's like how, the turnaround's typically like 3 days for vignettes, so. If we were, why don't they talk to you? How about that? And then we'll figure out
there's
how we're
enough-
gonna cover it.
Probably
and-
best.
I think I'm comfortable with the amount of,
probably best.
plenty of input, so I want to thank council.
I
We'll
lost
move on.
more hair follicles
Yeah.
during this process.
So, and I believe this was staff direction, so we're not going to a vote. And I will
Staff
follow
Yeah.
up. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, council. All right, we'll move on to our final regular business item.
We just approved $3 million and we're
Yeah.
fighting over $1,000.
Exactly.
I actually predicted that. Item 5J, discussion and potential action regarding the mayoral appointment of city council members, boards, commissions, and committees for 2019. This is one of the traditions of starting off the new year. I'm sure everyone reviewed our current positions.
Still happy with my assignments.
And
Maybe next year I'll not be so happy.
that's good to know. And what I'll do, just to do it in the same orderly fashion, former mayor, as you did last year, I think it'd be best if I go through just the list pretty quickly and solicit any input from my council members if there's any changes.
I would like to say, I would like to keep, I have library, Parks and Rec, Planning Commission, I would like to keep those. Mayor Pro Tem Kastner Howdige has expressed interest in taking the Film Commission from me, and I'm okay with that. I don't know if I have to trade her something.
I don't think so.
I don't know either, but since George was the alternate, George, are you okay with that, Mr. Nunn?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
You can be the alternate. I just traded you for the alternate.
Okay.
There you go.
All right.
You're the
That works.
alternate? You're the alternate?
I'm the alternate for the Film Commission.
And this is.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Couchman, do you have any input? Since we're getting it all out there, we may not
No,
even
I
have to
think
Get it
go
all
through
out there,
everything.
Sam.
I think I'm on the Air Pollution District Board, and that's good, and I usually am able to handle that. I think Norma would fill in for me if I'm not. The NOC, I've been attending their meetings. They have not so much a regular meeting, about every quarter or something. Quarterly meeting. That's pretty good, and Norma certainly is the secondary one there. And then Community and Economic Development, they haven't had a meeting in quite some time, but I'm the primary there, and I do know Esperanza and the people at the county level, so that's not a problem there. And you're the alternate, I think, for that one. So if anything
I don't think I've ever
happens
participated
from that-
because you've always attended.
I've
so-
always usually attended. I think Airport Advisory, I'm the alternate there. I'm not sure that I have a good record as an alternate. I think you pretty much attend those though on a regular basis, don't you, Mr. Mayor?
Best I can.
Okay, if you do have a problem, I'm willing to stay on that. Library Board of Trustees, I've attended that quite a bit. Just as a matter of course, Luke has been tied up with Planning Commission on some of those meetings, and I've been attending in his stead there. They like me over there. I'm their best used book customer, so
You're the best
I'm
tamale
fine,
eater
I'm
there?
fine with that one. So I'm good with the ones I'm in. I can take more, but it's up to you guys.
Alma,
would
do
you-
you need me to go through each one of these, or did you capture that?
I got it.
Okay, because it sounds like
The only
we're,
change is,
I think the only change was.
there are,
film.
yeah, a few changes, so.
So it's just what?
The film commission.
I have no changes, we just have the Film Commission
Yeah,
alternate
I
change.
just have a little bit of interest in
I don't think
finding
it's
out what
necessary.
they're
I know
doing.
those
And
guys,
yours is
unless you
going to be
want.
the delegate, George will be the
Do you want to
alternate,
free up a
or
little
vice
bit
No,
of
versa?
responsibility?
On the film committee?
Luke will be the
Bump me
alternate.
from alternate, and Luke will be alternate.
Yep.
Luke will be
Oh,
the
that's
alternate.
it, so just switch. Okay, not Norma, gotcha.
And then I just had one, I guess I can call them, but the United Way, I've been their rep, but I don't ever seem to get a call from them when they have their, I think they only meet annually,
Who's that?
the United Way.
Oh, yeah, they don't
We
meet
can
very
follow
often.
up with them as a
And just
part
let
of the
them
new appointee process. We
Yep.
do update the meeting schedule and contact information. so
Just
we
let
can
them know
find-
that I'm available if they need for me to attend.
Ken Whitinger, Stacy,
Okay.
they'll let them know.
And then the Association of California Cities Allied with Prisons, this was something that Councilmember Noriega was
Noriega,
on.
so, yeah.
Mhm.
And, they don't send us information anymore, so I don't know if,
They may not even be together any longer because it was like a group that had gone away. They came back together. And remember, we met them at that lobby in a hotel
Yep.
once, and it was like a group. The entire group was like, 3 people. So
and then there was a annual fee of like $500 or
Oh, really?
$1,000 to be
Wow.
a member.
I don't think we
So I don't
need
know.
that.
if-
But
I
they
don't
haven't
think we
billed
need
us,
the
have
member.
they?
Huh?
They haven't billed us for that fee,
No,
have they?
there's no one there to
Maybe they're
bill.
Maybe they're
so-
defunct now, maybe they're out of business.
So I don't know.
Maybe because we didn't pay the fee.
So I'm gonna find out on that
Could
one
be.
if it still exists
Okay.
and let you know.
I know we probably have representatives that
Maybe we can make
attend
half a
from
video
the
for that.
prisons, and maybe, I would imagine, I don't know.
Johnny gets $5.
No?
No,
Well, if we're good, it sounds like we're buttoned
We're
up
good.
there,
We're
so
good.
those will be the 2019 mayoral appointments. We'll move forward with that, and
So on the United Way, Norma, you're the,
I'm the
delegate, but
delegate,
me.
but I have yet to be contacted, and sometimes I hear about it after the fact, so
okay.
just let them
I'll
know
find
that
out.
I am
I'll call Stacy tomorrow.
They can email me or call me if they have any meetings, or,
Okay.
I know they have an annual meeting
Yeah, I'll call Stacy tomorrow.
that I know of.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which will be item 6, which is our informational reports, 6A.
Mayor Wharton, will you actually be taking action on this item on your appointments?
Yeah,
As
I
presented, a
didn't know.
motion and so it's the mayor's discretion, how those are named? If
I
Well, we-
apologize, I
yeah,
broke
it's-
ranks.
yeah.
I thought it was
We
mayor
don't-
appointment, so yeah,
Yeah.
if I need a
Yeah,
motion,
there-
I'm.
there- I think No, I think the way we've done it, though, it's the mayor, it has to still be approved by council.
Right.
Yeah, so I'll
Right.
make a motion to approve
Sure.
the mayoral appointments as presented and recorded by our
Second.
city clerk.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. No further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions? Thank you very much, my fellow council members. We'll move on to item 6 now, informational reports. 6A is record of building permits for November and December.
Look at them all.
I think it's in your backup material. Unless there's any questions, we'll move on to the next informational report item. Item B is attendance and summary minutes, the City of Brawley Boards Commissions from January 18 through August 2018. Sometimes there's some discussion here, so I'll open it up. If anyone has any comments or questions. Again, all
Mayor
back.
Wharton, if I may
Yep.
note, at the last meeting of the Planning Commission, there was an inquiry about attendance and some of the challenges, and probably this is a topic for kind of city council-wide. Our current policies indicate that after 3 consecutive absences, that a person is thanked for their service and a new appointment has been, is made. Policy and practice have sometimes differed with a request from the mayor to hold and wait on any changes, and because of personal circumstances that an individual appointee might have, a medical issue, et cetera. But I do want to note that we try to summarize attendance by each body, and I think you'll see we do have some challenges with regular participation. And if it's the mayor and council's wish, we can move forward with adhering to policy or not, but we're here to receive your direction.
I believe we've, as this does come up every year, I think we echo the same thing or try to message the same thing, that that's what I think the council's expectation. Does anyone have anything different on council as far as our attendance policy?
My comment would be that I know that we've always had trouble, keeping people engaged, and maybe there's a lack of activity and that's part of it, but it's always been difficult, regardless of what committee and commission, and it really doesn't matter if it's a planning commission or if it's, whatever. It's just always been difficult to hold people there, so.
Might that be a function of frequency?
Maybe, it could be frequency, or it could be the time.
Times, yeah.
It could be anything. Maybe revisiting that topic with the members would be important to see what a better time is, and maybe the frequency issue and all those sorts of things. I
Could
don't
do
know.
that
that's
as a
just
universal topic.
Yeah,
if
that
council
might be
agrees.
universal. Because I don't know if it's necessarily one particular committee or commission. It's just, I know that on my time on council, we've always had an issue in getting, and keeping people engaged, so.
So do we want to recommend that we follow up with those that have been absent, like more than the 3 times, and find out if they're still interested in serving, or?
I think a separate comment, if I could, please.
Sure.
I think too, with the commissions and committees, I think oftentimes, with the exception of maybe the library committee, 'cause, they
They go to all the meetings.
Yeah, because they're very engaged, highly engaged in a,
They do.
and they're making direct impact there, right? We're not as involved as council. With the others, we're more involved, and we are ultimately the decision makers. So there seems to be that separation, and maybe they don't feel like whatever they say or do is going to have any impact on our decision making anyway. So maybe we need to revisit that just to get people more engaged in that process. I think that's been a problem in the past, like the Parks and Rec Commission feels like they can make recommendations, but they're never necessarily followed. I know I've heard that in the past. I mean,
Well,
anyway, food for thought.
Okay.
I don't know, I did review them, I took the time to review all of them, and I did have a concern on some of them, so I just, if we want people to serve on these committees or commissions, we want to make sure that they're interested in whatever is taking place, and so if someone's absent for 5 meetings, 6 meetings, that kind of indicates to me that that person may not be interested, or maybe we should talk to them and find out what's going on and look at possibly opening it up.
I think, to your point, if there's 5, something that goes beyond even written policy, I think when you all agree that may be, it may be doing that person a favor, just to let them know, hey, we're gonna do something. Absolutely. But the other thing I will say is there's a little bit of a, to Councilmember Nava's point, there's probably a bell curve here. I mean, there's committees and commissions where you're going to have your, those that are probably not missed a meeting in 20 years.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have those that thought they were going to have the time, things change, whatever the case may be. It seems like that dynamic exists no matter what. In other words, it's just, it's life, So when you have a board or commission that's as engaged, for example, libraries, using that as an example, you're fortunate. That's kind of that's not always the case. But I think if, there's 5 absences or something that goes way beyond, even the 3, it's a clear indication that there's difficulty.
Yeah, it's some of these, I know for certain that there are medical issues that the individual might be working through. And so while it might be a terrible run at absences, it's something that's, going to hopefully improve in the future.
You bet. And something we do on occasion, usually for someone that's served, exemplary service. But I think there's nothing wrong with us, again, when someone does serve, it is volunteer time that they're, putting in their community, that we do acknowledge them. Even those that have, maybe they've struggled, things have changed, but nonetheless, they stood up, they applied, they maybe attended for the first year or 2, or whatever the case may be. So please let me know if you could, if there's
Would be
something
happy
there
to.
where we can thank them.
On the Parks and Rec Commission, I think during the time I've been with the city, the time of the meeting has changed
Multiple times.
2 to 3 times a year.
Yeah, because it goes to lunchtime, I remember why, and then it went to evening.
Even the day changed one time, from a Wednesday to a Tuesday.
They're gonna meet at
You
midnight.
guys remember the
Many
time that
times.
the mayor's breakfast changed? You remember that
Oh,
time?
dear.
Remember that?
It didn't work.
Yeah, do you remember that
We'll
time?
see what
Yeah.
happens.
Doing everybody a
That I
favor,
don't remember.
so you don't have to propose a member in the
It
future.
hasn't happened yet.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
That's why.
What's funny is you see 300
He's
people,
saying-
everyone's gonna be doing it.
Now, that went right over one.
Yeah, it did.
I made them all.
That's
All
right.
red in the face. You
Enough
can't see it because of the
information.
white beard.
I would like to also mention that up until last year, when we had the applications or for the different boards, was the first year that we had a lot of applications coming in to serve. But before, we've published in the paper,
Yeah.
we've,
Yeah.
so up until last year, we started getting more applications to serve on different boards.
And that was the reason why I brought it up too, is because there were people that were interested. I mean, they took the time to come in and try to tell us, sell their story on
Yes.
why they wanted to serve. So if there's some people on there that really can't for whatever reason, then maybe we should give those others an opportunity.
Just a little food for thought though, but I think it goes back to engagement, I bet you if I asked a commission member or let's say the Parks and Rec, they had to go to every park, they may not know where every park is at. So just engaging them, maybe instead of having the meeting, it's a mobile meeting or
A
something like
tour
that.
or
Just to
something.
do a tour of a park or a
that's a
couple
good idea.
parks, just to get them engaged again, and then they know what some of the decisions that they're making are impacting. So you don't have to visit every park, but maybe a few, and then see some of the improvements that have been made and what it's being used for. I don't know, food for thought. So
Okay.
you can go swimming.
Take them swimming
I know
right
with,
now.
Swimming right now though, like
Right now
now.
would be good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, the water's 50 degrees.
invigorate every single
Right.
member of the committee.
That maybe that's a threat actually.
Have
If you
the-
don't
have paramedics
attend,
standing by.
that's
for
what you're doing.
CPR.
Yeah.
Okay.
The direction, okay, very good. Thank you everyone for the input there. We'll move on to item 7, departmental reports. 7A is the update on, speaking of pool, skate park, Lion Center by our interim Parks and Recreation Director, Marjo Mello.
Good evening, everybody. And I like the idea of going to see the parks because that'll help me too.
Yeah, no, it does. It helps everybody, I think,
When I had a tour of the interior of the splash pad and how they recycle the water and all that, I get dizzy from watching pipes and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So it was really fascinating. So I think that's a good idea. Thank you.
I heard some people are getting dizzy at the skate park, huh? For other reasons.
Yeah, but they're
Yeah,
self-helping
I
it.
know,
I looked at the
that's
recycle.
the different story.
I
Yeah.
let the
Okay.
kids drink it.
Well, the pool heater's on schedule. We're really trying hard to get January 28th, but it'll probably be February 1st is the promise that we have. This week, they're going to finish calibrating all the chemical gadgets they added I love technical terms, but that's how I think of it. And then we're gonna need many days to heat up the water because the water is around 50 right now. To get it up to 78 is the goal, I think. So it'll take a few days. So we think and hope and are pretty sure that it will be ready to go February 1st. So we're excited about that. And we also have other things that need to be done at the pool. Some of them are budgeted, some are not budgeted. If you want the short list, the budgeted item is service and repair the filters and replacement of the seals. And it's not the balancing the ball on your nose seals, it's actually other seals. It is later, right? Unbudgeted items that are still needed is a chlorine pump replacement and clay valve filters which control water from the main water source to the pool. In other words, city water. And I'm reading that because I need to. A permanent shade over the main pump system was not added into the estimate of what it would take to change out the heaters. But we do need a new cover. The old one was like a tin carport, and that's kind of what we're looking at again. And there's 2 sets of equipment, so there's 2 of those needed. And there's 12 pool covers, and 3 are pretty much in shreds right now. And the panels are usually about $2,000 each. So if it's the direction to look at these things, the preliminary estimate's about $21,500. If you want me to continue with looking at that, to consider using the set-aside money for the pool out of the, that we have for the pool replastering, thank you. All I can think of is lining it with blue. Then we can do that, and I can prepare that and look forward. So that's a consideration for you. And that's it on the pool.
What was the estimate again?
About 21,500, because these are really estimated numbers.
So,
And
and
we-
this is a briefing, and it would come back to.
Right,
council if
and we want your input before we look into it and get quotes where if we came to you with a budget adjustment, it would be with a firm amount. But that's just an estimate right now for unbudgeted items. We are still taking care of the budgeted items that are within the pool, scope of the pool work. And at the skate park, we've had some vandalism problems lately. They actually cut the fence. We had it closed because we had to replace a custom-made rock that had been taken out. And what's really interesting is they cut the fence to get in to skate or ride a bike. Actually, I think it was probably somebody throwing a bike over the fence because they had chips in the sidewalk near where the hole was. And I think you could probably put your skateboard through, but your bike you couldn't. So that's been replaced.
How much was that to replace?
I don't remember, but I can get the
Just
information and.
No roundabout kind of, no idea?
No. I know I signed the paper, but I will
Okay.
email it to you for the cost of that part. Okay. And they'd ordered one and it wasn't right, so then they had to order another one. So that's one of the reasons it took a while. So to mitigate some of the problems, because we do have people smoking marijuana in there, drinking, and other behavior that's inappropriate in a public facility.
Says who?
Says who?
Yeah, right.
The law.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, no booze or drugs in city facilities. I
It's
actually
terrible.
got that confirmed officially from the police department. We've moved the hours, so a lot of the problems were at times when there were a lot of high school students around, so before school, lunch, and so now what we've done is we open it from 9 to 12 in the morning, and then we open it again from 3 to 8 in the afternoon. And that's because at 3 it's right after school, so it's a good time for people. And we used to be open till 10, but we're working on cutting it back to 8 o'clock to try to see if that helps with some of the issues we've had. We also removed bleachers that were across the street by Beachy Field, and a lot of people would sit on the bleachers and partake of illegal substances, whether it's a minor with alcohol or drugs or whatever they were doing. And
these bleachers were the outdated bleachers that have been the subject of the replacement project, so it was a great time. to have
Yes.
them removed.
And the other thing about them
Make
was.
sure we say that loud, because JPIA is here, and
Yes.
they need to hear that. There's-
Oh, okay. Oh, hi guys. Sorry, I didn't notice when I came in.
They snuck
But,
in. No,
yeah,
they snuck in.
Yeah, they snuck in.
She's like,
That's
I didn't
good.
notice, and then she winks at me like, well, all right.
Anyway, we're really excited we really are happy about the new bleachers because I saw a picture of one that they were trying to move today that didn't make it, and it
didn't make it.
It looked like a pile of wood. So we're really, we're really happy to have the new bleachers. The other thing is that we've had a meeting with the police department, and we're going to work on training for our staff on what we can do, what our expectations would be when they call the police. And then also the police will have a, kind of get briefed also on exactly what we can do. Because one of the things that we can do is, at times with inappropriate behavior, is trespass them, but a staff member has to trespass them. And then the police officer has to deliver the message, and then if the person shows up again within the 30 days, then there's more consequences involved. So I'm really happy to say that our police department has been really responsive and helpful in trying to get these things fixed. So we can all work together. And I think a lot of it's just in educating ourselves on what we can and can't do. So we're hoping for success. And from talking to Mr. Perez this morning, who is the one who gets a lot of the heat when he goes by and stuff, he says it's actually been cut down. He says he can tell from the trash, the things that are left on the ground, all those kinds of things, that actually just changing the hours and moving the bleachers has helped so far.
Heat in the sense of they harass him when he shows up? Is
Oh,
that-
yeah, he says they know his personal cars when he's driving around
Oh,
on the
really?
weekend, and they'll all like,
Oh, really?
you know, yeah, it's.
We've had some interesting encounters with users refusing to vacate with staff's requests. So we actually have had to call PD for assistance because they will not comply
Really?
with a non-uniformed
Really?
individual's
And so what happens when the
request.
police show up? They just leave, or?
Well, we're working to iron out how that gets managed in the future, but it will be if the park is closed, even if the fence is cut and someone's accessed it, when it's clearly closed, they need to leave the premises.
It's terrible.
Yep. And we're also looking at updating the signage that we have. There is a line on our current sign outside, but it's like the 8th item down, and it says no smoking, alcohol, or drugs may be used in the park, or illegal
Is there a comma
drugs.
between smoking and alcohol, or just?
And you think
no
by
smoking?
moving that up to number 1, that will solve this problem?
I think having big letters for a while, just an individual sign with big letters, hopefully will bring it to light. No, yeah, I'm going, oh, this is a good place, okay. So, anyway, that's what we're doing, and if anybody has any good ideas, we'd appreciate that also. The Lions Center's had a lot of water on the inside of, not the pool, but the building.
Bless you.
Bless you. So when we have the lovely rain that we've enjoyed for other reasons, we do have a problem with the roof over the restrooms. And who should I tell? Anyway. Okay.
They're actually well acquainted because they visited our restroom
Okay.
facilities
All right.
just within the last 30 days.
Right.
I
So,
was gonna say, they
yeah.
go that long before visiting the restroom?
so we're looking at what we can do to make sure there's no mold, what we can do for the roof, whether we can look at patching that section that might last 2 or 3 years until we can look for grants, maybe perhaps to do the whole roof. But the whole roof actually needs to be done on the Lions Center. So we're doing some exploratory work on that. So,
And then there was work, obviously, on the AC units, and then sometimes that causes leaks, and,
yes,
so,
exactly. Because we now have AC in one
Yeah.
section of the
Uh-huh.
building, and that one was
Yeah.
changed out
Yeah.
even within the last year.
But it's just people walking on it, and the heat, everything else, it just starts to crack, and then you get.
And
I
it's
mean,
a
that
flat
happens.
roof.
Yeah, uh-huh.
So which doesn't help
And it pulls
either.
in places and stuff, but yeah,
Right.
it's water is like, it's a great thing, but whenever you have a leak, it's the worst thing ever because it's hard to control. So
I'm just glad it's over the showers. I mean, that's
yeah, no doubt. At least it's working, right? Yeah.
And has a floor drain.
Yeah. Yeah. Think about it. If
Yeah.
it didn't, yeah.
could be really.
Terrible. Yeah.
Yep, extra good stuff. So, I know you're gonna have a report on, street water breaks, but we also had one at the Cattle Call Arena. And they actually, when I originally wrote my report, they'd had two, like 3/4 inch line and a 1 inch line, but they've also since then had a 4 inch line break. So they've had a lot of excess water on the terraces and stuff. So staff is working on trying to fix it, make sure the dirt's good, and then we're going to look at mitigating any erosion that could possibly happen too. So we want to make sure we do everything in steps. So just letting you know we're aware of those things and we're working on them.
Do
Does that
you have
take some
any
time?
estimation on that time frame? Because I know it's a work in progress, but is it
Well, and it
weeks,
also
months,
depends on how
days?
much more water we have. They're working on it this week.
Okay.
And, they've got the water line capped and stuff. But one of the considerations is to make sure that they have water to where the horses and stuff are. So they've been really trying to make sure that they have those kinds of things available, even if they reroute things.
Okay.
So lots of big machines digging dirt up, and actually by hand because some of it's on a slope. So not always machine usable when it's muddy as it is. Also, in December 21st, we had our Christmas movie, and we had 100 people, and they had a good time with Christmas gifts from Santa, popcorn, water, and all kinds of other really good things. So it was a really good event. Also, another positive thing, there are 31 teams for children's basketball right now in the city's league with over 300 participants. So that's a nice group of kids, yes. And also a thank you to Gateway Church that lets us use their gym also to actually schedule things in their gym and stuff. So they're wonderful. And then the Senior Center will host a Valentine's dance on the evening of February 15th. Yes, I qualify.
I'm saying this thing.
But they should have a really, really good time because they usually do with dancing and things. So they're looking for musicians and things like that because they always have a good time there as well. So any questions about what's going on in Parks and Rec? Or?
Well, sounds busy.
Thank you, Marjo.
is.
Thorough
Thank you.
report.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Look forward to future items. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Move on to, under department reports, item B, which will be update on the water line breaks from our Public Works Director, Guillermo Silas. And high-level report will be fine, Guillermo, unless there's any questions.
Square footage or.
Yeah,
No, we
yeah.
don't need all the details.
How many
We don't need all the details.
Executive summary.
The short version.
Okay.
The fortune cookie version. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So 13 water breaks during the last 10 days. That's it.
13?
Wow.
13.
Wow.
What's the reason for that?
Temperature.
Temperature,
I
and
was
it's
hoping
the
to-
Cold weather.
primarily located in our most aged portions of the city that are highest replacement priorities in our water, our water rate study.
It's funny that they talk like that, and then people tell me in the community, no, it's not that. That's not what's making it break. They say if they're down underground, they can't freeze.
That's why
And
they're,
that's not
they're
really-
they don't need to freeze. They just need to get cold, and
Then it
you know, and then,
breaks.
yeah, it's gonna snap. And
That's
think
what I'm
about
So
it.
the explanation that I got from the supervisor, and I did a little bit of research on that, is that when the water temperature drops slowly, so it tends to expand, but when it gets to approximately at 40 degrees Fahrenheit, start expanding up to the freezing point, which is 32 or 0 Celsius, and it expands 9%. So the water that is circulating through the pipe and the water that is in moisture condition on the ground is pushing the pipe against each other. So that's the reason to see
forcing itself.
the cracking is
flexing.
like a perfect cut with a knife. It's not like a crack along the pipe. It's just
just a-
straight, you know.
It's just a
because
snap.
snap, exactly, because the pressure from inside and
You
from
can explain
outside.
it that way.
That's what I'm gonna do next time.
Look.
Guillermo, were all segments
It's
cast iron?
9% expansion. When it gets into
That-
0 degrees.
I don't have that information accurately because I reviewed the atlas with information, and some of the sections says that it's PVC, but it's not PVC.
What
So
is breaking? What's
it's cast iron.
cast iron?
Is the most.
Yeah.
It's strong, but it's
It's also brittle.
brittle, exactly.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So I'm gonna go talk to them tomorrow and tell them they're wrong.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's pretty much.
Any other
My
questions? Mr. Silas, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll move on to our next item, item 8, which will be city council member reports, and we'll begin with council member Hamby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Considering it's been 4 weeks since our last council meeting, is that right?
Yep.
It feels like a long time, yeah.
Yeah, I have a very long list of things to report. I was honored to meet with Mayor Pro Tem Kastner Haudegi and a faction of the Downtown Merchants Association, along with some of the chamber employees. And we walked downtown to look at buildings that are being used, buildings that are empty, and kind of talk about what we hope will come in the next few years and how we can make that happen. I attended a planning commission meeting last week, which was very insightful, very well attended. I think there were 3 or 4 people there. Maybe a few more than that. I attended a Parks and Recreation meeting today, and I'm encouraged by the attendance at those meetings and appreciate the input that the different commissioners have. This past week, I attended the funeral of Denise Smith and was honored to be able to play a piece on the violin for that funeral, and I saw some of my fellow council members there. And she was definitely a pillar in the community, and she will be missed. It leaves a void. I received quite a few calls from different concerned community members regarding different aspects of our city that they wish were better. One of those is from senior citizens who really would like to see us do something about that side door, to get that to where they can go out that door and onto that patio that's so beautiful. So we discussed that at some length today at the Parks and Rec meeting, and I hope that there's enough desire among people of means to see that happen, that we can pull together some funds to make it happen sooner rather than later. I got a phone call from John Sample, who calls himself Johnny on Wheels, also Johnny Rocket, and he is anxious to see movement with the tree program that's been discussed in the last year. I don't know if there's anything that's happened since the last time we talked about it several months ago, but he's anxious to see some trees being planted as the season is right for that. And I think that's it for my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamby. Appreciate that. Next up will be Councilmember Couchman.
Okay, I attended a library board meeting this last week as the alternate. Had a nice meeting with the ladies over there. They will be having a book sale on February the 9th. If you plan to beat me over there, you'll have to get there early. I think it starts at, what? 9 a.m. So that's
get
on
the good
February
stuff.
the 9th. And they discuss a lot of things at a library board meeting. I think it's important they get a good group in there and they really go through the library stuff, the billing and all of that stuff, and they look at it all over. Marjo runs a pretty good meeting, and and we talk a lot about a lot of different things, books and otherwise, and the children's events, which are very, very important for our library. I attended Denise Smith's funeral. Yes, she was important to our community, and I did work with her at the county in Human Resources when I was a director at the county of the workforce development. And Denise, I've known Denise many, many years, and she's very much too young to go like that. And then I also attended Abe Seabolt's funeral, and Abe Seabolt was a former city councilman here in the city of Brawley and mayor twice He was also a county supervisor for, I think, 2 terms.
And a business owner in Brawley.
Huh?
And a business owner.
And he owned a business on the east side of town, on East Main, Seabolt Oil. And I've known him for many, many years, and in fact, he was somewhat my mentor, and he's responsible for me probably becoming a department head at the county. And I've kind of followed in his footsteps, I guess, in terms of being a city councilman and 2 times mayor, which is what I've done. And so he was very important in my life. I think when I was much younger, I had not seen him for a few years, except maybe once or twice, but I did attend many parties at his house here in town and at his house in Julian. And he really did enjoy that. And it was good. He involved all the department heads in the county and everything when he was in there, and well respected. My father respected him. My father was a businessman here for 40 years, and he dealt with Mr. Seabolt when he was on the city council. So I was pleased to be there and represent the city at that funeral. And that's what I have to report. Just an announcement, we'll be having our Civil War live fire this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, out at the Wheeler and Huff at the Imperial Valley Rifle and Pistol Association. It's mainly for the reenactors to shoot live ammunition from Civil War guns, and we'll have probably some cannon, rifles, and cavalry carbines and pistols out there. And we run a match, and it's like a combat match, and it's different than a reenactment. Anybody's welcome to attend. We don't advertise it. Bring your own food and your own chair, and you can come out and watch us for a couple of hours out there. We'll be out there from probably 10 to 3 or 4 on Saturday and 10 to about 1 or 2 on Sunday. And so if you're interested in bringing out kids or children, we ask you to watch your children. There is a firing line, and we will be watching too, but we need everybody to be safe. So, and with that, that's all I have to report.
It's this weekend?
Yes, that's this weekend.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Hamby. Councilmember Nava.
Speaking of explosions, New Year's Eve, goodness, I mean, some of the neighbors are so inconsiderate too around my house. It was just like, waking up to that explosion and then just seeing something land within their yard on my fence line and just blowing up. I mean, it just was, it really upset me. But we need to do something different about how we enforce that, because it's just become such a problem, and it's so loud and so obnoxious. Not just that, but it's just dangerous. I'm telling you, that hit my fence, and it's a wooden fence, and it was just, I went out there, and I don't want to get in a confrontation with somebody just over something, but goodness gracious, it's just no consideration for the neighborhood, and that's just my house. Imagine all the other places around town. That's why people are so upset. I understand their frustration there. At any rate, that was my experience for New Year's. But, it's been a pretty active past few weeks, professionally and personally and within City Council. I know we're starting to get ramped up again on what we're doing, and I'm excited about this upcoming year. I was able to participate along with Mayor Pro Tem Kastner Howdigi at local business. We did a little video, and I plan on continuing that trend with everybody, and we can help promote some businesses here and share those stories of what they do and how they do it. So I think that's important. But I also, attended a few other meetings with some community members on some upcoming projects and things. There seems to be a lot of excitement about the Pilot Center. I have seen that place is packed. So that's a good sign for the city of Brawley and for its residents and everybody else. So maybe I'm just hoping that we capture more of that pass-through traffic, and those are tax dollars for our community, so that's good stuff. And then I think, now that people feel a little bit more sense of relief with at least what we've been told that the McDonald's and those sorts of things are coming back and moving forward, I think that's really important. And, Taco Bell is there. And, it's slow and steady movement moving forward. A lot of roadway improvements. We heard a lot of complaints from people about that, but it's funny, they want them improved, but then they don't want to be inconvenienced. It is what it is, so, but I would say I'm really happy with the quality of the work that was done there. I think it's good and it's an improvement, so, it helps everybody, so it's one of those things that I hope, and then we approved the other work tonight, so, that'll be another
significant.
Yeah, I think that this year is going to be the year of roadway improvements. Yeah, I mean, we've had many over the past decade, but this is going to be a good one. There was another thing of note that I wanted to mention, but, I know it's been a while. Merry Christmas to everybody. Hope you had a nice one, and you were able to get some cool stuff from Santa Claus. I know I did. in the form of bills, but that was, you know. But aside from that, no, there's a whole lot of other stuff. I look forward to working with Mayor and everyone else on council on this project for the mayor's address. So it's going to be good. Let's feature what we have done and let's talk about being positive. I love positivity. And on a personal note, you know, my business is, things are going well, so I'm happy. And it's hoping to hire some people soon, and you know, it's been pretty good. You can't complain. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, Councilmember Nava. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, okay, it seems like a long time since we met, and I guess we stayed pretty busy. It was right, I think it was right around Christmas time that Marjo asked if I would do a reading for the children over at the Del Rio Library. I hadn't done that in quite a while, but I actually really enjoyed it. I haven't even done that for my grandkids, so I thought, wow, here I'm doing this. So it gave me an idea to do that for my grandkids, so I really enjoyed that. Thank you for the invite, it was nice. We continued our interviews. I think all of us did interviews with the Brawley Union High School civics class students, and that was also enjoyable, seeing how much interest they have in what we do. And I think I'm seeing a lot of interest from the high school students and possibly pursuing political science and learning, you know, more about what's involved in the community and engaging in it. And then I accepted an invitation from the Senior Center Club to do their installation of officers for this year, and provided them with an update on what was happening with the city. They were all really interested in the new businesses that are opening, and also expressed a little concern about the roads, but they were happy that the roads were being fixed, so that was good. I did meet with a couple of business owners. Well, one business owner in particular is looking at the possibility of moving from where she's at to a downtown facility. So we did a walk around the downtown also to see what was available, and she's going to get back to me and let me know if she's interested in any of those locations. And then, as Councilman Hamby reported, we are attending some meetings. I think it's going to be an ongoing thing with the chamber. It's like a subcommittee of downtown business owners that want to continue talking about improving the downtown. So that's been really good communication with the downtown folks. And I did follow up with a contact that I made actually a couple of years back at one of these seminars that had to do with the environment in Imperial County, that had made an offer regarding some trees for Imperial County. And we talk, and then she's gonna get back to me, and then it doesn't happen, and then she wants to know how many trees, and then she wants to know what type of trees. So it's been kind of an ongoing thing, and I tried to reach her again this week, so I'm gonna keep following up to see if maybe we can get a donation of trees for our city. And other than that, I've been trying to get into Taco Bell, but every time I attempt to go there, there's no parking, so I guess that's a good thing. So I'm going to keep trying and see.
You got to run for the border. That's fine.
That's about it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Howdegi. Just to be brief, just welcoming everyone back into a new year. Look forward to this year. Just echoing a lot of what you heard from our fellow council members. Obviously, we're going through the holidays, but continued engagement, many community members. I've taken the time to not only in heavier engagement with staff and really trying to set a little bit of a course going into this year. I do value the input that I've received from my council members on some of our one-on-ones. I think I mentioned that our last meeting back in December. I did, in addition, I did go down and visit the McDonald's site, because that was one of the burning questions going back about a week and a half ago about, you know, kind of what's going on, and had some direct contact with one of the contractors or subcontractors there, EFR. So it looks like things are really moving. Everyone can see that, high profile, so happy to see that. And I know a couple of my council members touched on Denise Smith's service. I think once again, it's, you know, we as we talk about these things, it just made me reflect and think again about the whole cause behind health and wellness. I've echoed that a little bit going into this year. We often say without that, we really don't have much, you know, and so I still want to make it an area of focus of mine outside of everything else that we take on as a city, that we continue not only to echo but look for initiatives. I've mentioned things about potentially putting on an event, something like a triathlon. Obviously, it may seem like it gets a real special group of people together, but to me, what I've found, it's really about getting folks out the door and active, whether they participate in something like that or not. And with that said, there's a great cause coming up, the U-Haul race, which is put on by the Ivy Velo Club and a lot of dedicated members around the valley to raise money for cancer research. So I've been fortunate to be part of that this year. Again, unless I got involved in this kind of stuff, I wouldn't have known of that, you know, back in the past. So look forward to that. That's coming up February 2nd. Some of us are going to pedal about 70 miles. That's what I'm going to try to do. And make it out of that. But if you want to do something last second, you can do that as well. I will come back. I'm not 100% certain that we'll arrive at something that's feasible yet on a Brawley triathlon, but if we can get it in the realm of feasibility, I'm hoping that's something that can come to council. But right now, I think we're still in developmental. And if it doesn't work this year, it could be something that, you know, comes in a future date. But I'd like to keep working on that a little bit as I call it a side project.
Or even a gift, like if that doesn't work, I
Be
mean,
something else.
don't drop the topic, because I think it's an important topic, but maybe something like using our parks, like Hinojosa, we have workout equipment, maybe a Get Fit
Yeah.
event there, that's something like, I
I was
don't know,
even
something.
thinking, there's smaller events where,
Yeah.
like a aqua bike or an aqua, where maybe you don't have all the courses, or an aqua run or something where you do a swim and a run. So we'll continue. I'm happy to hear some of the progress on the pool. That's going to be
Yeah.
pretty important if there's a aquatic element to it. But we'll keep working on it. I just wanted to report that out. And I did have some recent engagement with some
Smoke and
continued interest.
Smoke and skate.
And elevated, my expectations, well, the council can run as a team. I don't know if that's a Brown Act violation, but we certainly should be able to go out and do something like that, right?
As long
Without
as we
making
don't
any
talk about it.
decisions, so we can figure out who's gonna swim and bike or
We
run.
wouldn't be
or
able to
whatever.
talk, that's okay.
You cannot talk when you get your heart rate above 120-ish.
You know, in
but,
Ironman, the guys that drive the motorcycles and kind of like
Yeah.
cheer people on, I
Or
could do
bike.
that.
Yeah.
I'll be your pace car.
There you go. Sam
Lots
doesn't even like to drive 70 miles.
Lots
You
of
can imagine
support.
biking, you know, it's like-
One final, I don't know if this is public, so I may be getting the cart before the horse, but I'm gonna say it anyways. It looks like I might be tapped for Dancing with the Stars, so.
All right.
I'm gonna,
Yes.
I've
kind of
been there.
frightening, you know, kind of get the
Kinda
visual on
frightening.
that, but,
You better break dance.
Pressure's on.
so,
Pop and lock.
It's a good experience,
Pop
and it's
and
for a
lock.
good cause, so.
I figure maybe that fits into the health and wellness, I suppose, I don't know, but,
You pop and lock it, Will.
yeah. So, hopefully I'll try to do my best there in representation of our city, not to embarrass us completely, but, I'll report more if I make any progress on that, so as we move forward, so.
You're moving, yeah.
Yeah. We'll move on. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll move on to item number 9, City Manager's Report.
A few items. The first is, as everyone is aware, we're in the midst of a federal government shutdown, and as a result of that, the city has begun fielding requests for accommodation from individuals who have been furloughed or are working without pay. I have circulated a preliminary set of parameters. As it stands, we've been working with our customers on a case-by-case basis. But they're following yesterday's informational workshop that was hosted by the County of Imperial. I fielded calls from elected officials that were there from other agencies asking for what the City of Brawley's position was, as well as a number of follow-up calls from individual employees today. So what I would like to do is move forward with a written policy and direction to our finance department to both verify that an individual is in fact furloughed and move forward with up to a 30-day relief period. And hopefully we'll see a change in circumstance by the next 30 days completion. But if it does not make its way across the finish line, we'll revisit with the council at a future
Can you,
meeting.
do you have the discretion of just taking action right now? In other
Yes.
words,
Yeah.
yeah, then I would just suggest that you do that, because if
Right.
you wait time to go for policy and everything else,
No, we are communicating outward that we're providing relief, but
Yeah.
I needed actual policy to
Yeah,
extend
support it
the
later,
time.
uh-huh.
Yeah, so we're, like I said, working case by case, but
Yeah.
I will push out messaging tomorrow
yeah.
that states the 30-day accommodation. We won't shut off individuals who notify us that they were affected by the government shutdown, and we will not, we'll waive fees associated with late payments.
Is there a way to communicate that more broadly? I mean, I think it's a good thing to be able to offer people if they need the assistance, and I think if, some people are embarrassed to ask or whatever it is, but if we put the message out there, I mean, there are accounts that are being paid, but in this case, maybe they need that relief for a month or something.
Or in public
Or
safety.
two, yeah,
public
yeah.
service
Right, so,
announcement.
some methods that we could use, we can
Nixle.
post at the counter, we can do Nixle. I'm not sure, I think word of mouth is extremely strong. I've got two, employees that I think represent, large bodies.
Well, why don't,
Of-
instead of putting that, maybe Nixle can just direct them, for, to see what the city of Brawley is doing for furloughed federal employees, please visit the website, and then you can
And I
have the
can put
message
up
there.
a notice or
Uh-huh.
something that's
Something like that.
easy to read. Right, so the hard part, and I need to work with finance to kind of iron out the details, is once the shut-off list goes out, if we're not informed by an individual utility billing customer of their employment status, we won't be able to decipher one
Yeah.
customer from another.
Yeah.
So it's important that we clearly message and that they get back in touch with the finance department regarding their circumstance. Otherwise, we're going to shut off and then
Yeah.
incur cost associated with restoration. So
Yeah.
wanted to make council aware of those actions that will be undertaken. Want to also, I know I've individually briefed a couple of council members, but haven't gotten to all of you yet. We have encountered some issues at the police department in the report writing room with water seeping through the roof. We have brought in an outside party to help us assess. We are looking at a 17-year-old AC unit as the possible culprit, combined with rain.
That sounds like very criminal, you know what I mean, the way you said it?
Yes.
We have a 17-year-old.
Well,
culprit.
we're
Yeah.
eliminating variables in play, because there was a thought that perhaps it was entirely rain-related. I'm not sure that we've arrived at that conclusion. It appears to be a blend, and I'm mentioning it to you because it is very likely that I'll have to take action outside of a council meeting, and we'll be seeking council's support for an emergency ratification item at a future date as we.
17-year-old unit is like.
I know, and to
When you
repair
start-
it,
Yeah.
we'll
That's
need
like
a
so
crane.
old. Yeah.
So, because there's an issue
Yeah.
with the pan.
That is so old.
Right, so, more information coming your way in the not-so-distant future. And, with reference to, Councilmember Hamby's question about the trees, want to make sure I share an update. About 2 weeks ago, I reached out to Trees of San Diego and the city of El Centro to inquire about the status of we're expecting an MOU that we'll enter into with the city of El Centro as the agency hub. And I was directed to follow up with Trees of San Diego first to get an update from them. On tonight's El Centro City Council meeting agenda, an arborist is scheduled for award of a contract. And once that arborist is named, the city of El Centro will be prepared to proceed with rollout. There is a draft MOU that they're not able to release to us yet, but it's coming from their legal department, and I'm sure I'll be passing it to Bill for his review, and that item will be on a council agenda in the future. In the meanwhile, the clock is running with reference to the award of funds that are in hand for this project, and I did have an opportunity to meet with Callie Lagakis, who is from Trees of San Diego, and a very central part of securing what is now a total dollar value of $5 million for parks related in for tree planting efforts countywide. The first grant, which is the subject of the 350 trees that the city will be a recipient of, along with the school districts, is part of a 1,400 1,400 separate trees being planted on public property countywide. So what Kelly was able to share is that those 350 trees for Brawley, as well as the 1,400 total, have got to be planted by March of 2020. So they're coming soon,
Okay.
but not that fast. And next week, we have scheduled Miguel Perez from the Parks Department to meet with the arborist and Trees of San Diego to visit 9 locations of city properties where there's irrigation and trees are in need. In addition to those locations, we will also be working with our partners at school district sites to see if there is joint potential there as well. 350 trees is a lot of trees.
Yeah.
And we're hopeful that we can be a part of a successful execution of the grant. Want to also note that there is a tree stewardship programming component of this grant. And my hope is to reach out to our superintendent at Brawley Union High School to see if we can join with the civics class on a community project. And it would, the holes would be dug, and really it's about coming and connecting the planting activity to long-term success of what's going into the ground. So I'm hopeful that I'll have some information to bring to you in the future on that.
The $5 million associated with that is for the Imperial County alone,
Correct. 3 separate grants, 1.4, 1.7, and 1.7.
and part of that is for ongoing maintenance of those trees?
No.
It's just simply for the one-time planting of those trees.
It's various aspects. It's an inventory program, which will count the reduction in carbon emissions gained, what positive green outcomes. There's lots of different elements. There's the second grant she received is for plantings on private properties, not public.
Oh, interesting.
It's a lot of trees and
It's
a
a
lot of
lot
money.
of trees.
I
There's
need to get
literally,
into the tree business is what I need to do.
I don't know if you've ever seen, in big
You
big
should.
cities, they inventory, every tree has a tag and is tracked, its lifespan and health is tracked with like a serial number. So this actually creates
Like
a
forests,
numbering system for all of the tree inventory and the investment in the community. And we'll see once the MOU draft comes our way. We do have some obligations for keeping these trees alive. So it's
They don't stay alive. We have to replace them at our cost.
We
Is
don't
that
know
not
what the
correct?
language will, we haven't seen it yet, but
that's-
it is really important that we choose both trees that work for our local climate and where there's irrigation. There is a $10,000 set aside that's yet to be determined how it'll be applied to local jurisdictions, but it's available for smart irrigation. It's nowhere near the total amount needed to address these needs, but it is a movement in an overall positive direction, and we're hopeful to share with you kind of next steps in the not too distant future.
Wow.
Very good. All right, thank you very much, City Manager. We'll move on to our City Attorney.
So it's a new year, that means new legislation. I think the thing that's impacting the city the most, at least, is the radical change in how police officer personnel records are handled under the Public Records Act. And things like discipline and use of force, reports that used to be confidential, and the only way you could get it was to go to court and get a court's order. That all changed on the 1st, and we've already have Public Records Act requests from ACLU and Los Angeles Times, and it's taken up a lot of my time. I got it for both agencies, Calipatria and Brawley. Calipatria is easy because we have such a small police department, I know what's there. And I've been there for 20 years, but Brawley's, Commander Howard and I are gonna be working a lot to deal with this. And I get that the public has a right to know things, but this is major, and I'm sure the police are not happy about it, and I'm sure cities across the state have police departments that are very unhappy about this. But anyway, that's new. I'm sure there's lots more new stuff that'll be coming our way.
Very good. Thank you, Bill. And then item 11, City Clerk's report.
Just a reminder, the league dinner next Thursday, the 24th.
Where's
El
that
Centro,
gonna be? El Centro?
Guadalajara's.
Guadalajara.
I have a question for you. When is the business expo?
Passed.
That passed and you missed it.
The Schmoozapalooza.
It was on the 9th.
January
I went.
January
I'll see you there.
I went on the 9th.
Yeah.
I know, and there was nobody there, right, to greet you. I know I went too.
All right. Just a little fun. Yeah, we'll move on. Thank you. Anything else? Anything else?
And then Donnie tried to back you up saying it was only 2 days ahead or something.
I did.
was like, what?
I heard that. That's what I
I was
heard.
wondering what was going on between you.
I know, I was like.
I was the only one that had the right
I
time,
know.
date and
I
time.
was like,
You can count on me for that. Have a good
Move on to our
calendar.
next item, which will be closed session. So I want to thank everyone for your patience this evening and your input, and we'll take a couple-minute break.
cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.